How many lies have I been told by the council?
That was
what? That was.
You want to tell them where that was?
Clone Wars.
Yes.
Anakin. Right
Clone Wars
there.
Anakin.
Some Clone Wars Anakin.
Matt Lanter. That was a good one.
Wow.
How many lies have I been told by the council?
Do you mean we're going to be lying for the next 2 hours?
This whole episode just
It's
lie
like a setup
after lie
Nothing is real.
after lie.
What would be great is rewatching this in the last 10 seconds. I was this close to saying, and then Nate chimed in. I went,
What
which
might
is
have been.
awesome. By the way, before we get started, well, welcome to the podcast. We will get started, but before I continue that thought, this is funny that every single time we're about to end our podcast for the night,
Are we done? Is this it?
Abigail, yeah, this is what I was talking about.
Okay.
We'll wrap it up.
Abigail, my wife, was talking to me earlier. She said, every single podcast, about 30 minutes before you guys are about to end, Nate tries to wrap it. And we keep going. She said you and Uncle just run right through it, and then Nate gets
Exactly
real
right.
quiet that last
Exactly right.
quarter of the podcast.
You can
And
hear
then
him
he goes
go.
to,
He's
waits, and he waits to see if someone's got anything else. He's like, okay, and then another.
It always
tangent.
starts with Kanan. That's usually how it starts.
Kanan.
Then we're back in.
Uncle, I gotta find my parents.
Ezra.
What's up, Force family? This is the longest intro of all time. Welcome back to the Star Wars Guys podcast. We are, as always, we're your hosts. I'm Mike. This is Nate, and you know him well, Uncle. And we need that T-shirt to get out there. You know him well. You know him well.
know him well.
You know him well.
Now that's a name I've only heard every Sunday night
Every
because it's a
Sunday
part
night.
of my regular routine listening to Star Wars guys.
We have a very fun podcast episode tonight. A big, fun discussion. What was the exact wording of it? The best way to watch Star Wars. I
Yeah,
wanted to make sure I
which-
didn't.
Take with that as you will. I don't know.
Yeah, so this will be
Who
a
knows what that
very
means?
interactive, hopefully, if you're watching. Comment throughout because this can mean many things. There's going to be many opinions on the best way to watch Star Wars. What does that mean? Are we talking about the settings on your TV? The brightness?
Oh, I
don't
hadn't even
know.
thought about that.
Oh, I
There's
didn't-
some stuff.
I
You got
didn't,
stuff.
I didn't get
Yeah.
notes on that, actually.
That's more of an uncle thing. He's got it. The
Home theater.
correct.
Well, True motion on or off. That's the big
Oh.
controversy.
Oh,
you go.
see? We
24
got a whole
frames a
discussion
second?
here.
60 frames a
Ooh.
second?
Dolby Atmos?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Those are big words. I don't even know what
They
they
are.
mean. But I like Star Wars. So
I like movies.
I like movies.
Hey, Ann Morrow, show me the Galactic Star Cruiser. Calm down, Jimmy.
Oh boy, a brand new lightsaber.
His name's not even. Now he's Daffy Duck. I love Star Wars. It's my favorite.
Favorite.
This galactic critter, despicable. No, it's gonna
Our
be great.
tangents have zero relevance, and nobody knows what we're talking about.
I love
and
it.
zero accuracy.
Inside
It just-
jokes.
It just varies.
Oh,
What's
man.
up? Oh, they're still
man.
here. We should probably do a podcast episode.
Yeah, probably.
Best
Yes.
way to watch.
Best way to watch Star
And
Wars.
on the screen there, you've got like everything. I saw on the thumbnail, you
thumbnail.
got Solo. We got even Kenobi, which the best way to watch that is
Yeah.
to go into the future.
Exactly. Well,
Yes.
We got
Yeah.
Rebels, Mando's on there, original
yeah.
trilogy.
Andor, also future.
Andor.
Andor.
And
Yeah.
I can't forget because that was a perfect segue. You're talking about going into the future to watch future Star Wars. It was just announced yesterday. Christopher Lloyd
I know.
joining Mandalorian season 3.
Oh my goodness.
Great
Yeah.
Scott, Marty! We gotta
I
go
heard
to
he's
the future.
voicing. I heard he's voicing Grogu.
He is.
Well,
Wow.
maybe not.
Great Scott, Mando. And then Mando is played by Michael J. Fox. Whoa, Doc! Are you telling me I gotta wield the Darksaber? No. Oh, this is literally heavy.
There's 100 of them because they've
Heavy.
cloned him. It's gonna
Yes,
be awesome.
it's all. But that is actually true. While we joke around on the podcast,
The Michael J. Fox thing.
not the Michael J. Fox.
Not
Christopher,
the Grogu thing.
Christopher
either.
Lloyd. The Christopher Lloyd thing
Christopher Lloyd.
is true.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's true. This isn't one of our fan casts of like, well, what if Morgan Freeman played Cad Bane? This is actually true.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Christopher Lloyd.
Cool.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
We're big Back to the Future fans here.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
Doc Brown in Star Wars.
And I go back to
we got Carl Weathers in Star
Jimmy
Wars. Doc
Natowski in
Brown.
Taxi. Yeah, Carl
Yeah, you go
Weathers.
back even. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
what do
sure.
you mean?
I was gonna say you go back to.
Listen to it on the radio, didn't you?
Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff to discuss, but the reason, the idea that kind of spawned this whole episode is that there are so many different installments in the Star Wars universe, especially since the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney in
Right.
2012, and then
Yeah.
Rebels coming and Force Awakens, and then everything kicking off. It used to be, we were just talking even a little bit before the podcast of, there used to be debates of, well, if I'm watching 1 through 6, what is the order? And we'll talk about some of these things. The machete order used to be a very like, oh, if you watch 1, 2, or if you watch 4, 5, then you go to 1, 2,
Skip
then
1.
you skip 1,
2,
go to
3.
2, 3,
Yeah.
come back. There's all this stuff
6,
that's
maybe 1.
the
right.
machete order is just cut 1 out of it. I think.
Exactly, pretty much.
Right.
But then we
It's
miss
like
Hall.
it's like an add-on you can watch it if
Yes.
you want to.
Yeah.
But then we miss pod racing and we miss.
Could we do this
Qui-Gon.
maybe before we start? Could we talk about the way we watched, the order in
I
which
like it.
I
we
think that's
watched?
the best way.
I
to do
like it.
Because we're all slightly different. You guys might be similar,
Well, and
but I
as
know for like Rebels and Clone Wars, it's not the
Experience-wise.
same.
That's true. Not the same.
and as I mentioned earlier, Uncle watched them a long time ago.
In a galaxy.
In a galaxy,
galaxy
he
far
lived.
Yeah, I lived
Galaxy
there.
far, far away.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a great way to introduce to
That's
just
fair.
to get the conversation
That's
going.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Uncle was the first one to watch it, barely before me, but
Yeah,
you can.
so I watched 4, 5, and 6 in the theater as they happened.
And you were how old in for 4?
Yeah, it was 77, so I've been 8 years old. Probably still, my birthday's in August, so I would have been 7,
The exact age I was when I
Still.
watched Phantom Menace
which is
in theater,
Yeah.
but I had already
Cool.
watched it. Sorry, I'm taking your spot.
No.
I started
And
talking
then
about my
we
order.
didn't have any movies. We didn't have any. I shouldn't say that. We had the Star Wars Holiday Special, which I also
Yeah.
did see. That's part of it.
yeah,
I saw that before.
Depends
I
if you
saw,
ask George or not.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, 'cause that's canon, right? Yeah, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Art Carney stole that whole episode, by the way. And, yeah. So I watched the original series, and then we had nothing for a long time, and I didn't watch the movies. I read a few of the books in there. So then it came out. We watched 1, 2, 3, and then
Mhm.
actually I didn't watch. Rebels and Clone Wars came out in shortly after that. I didn't watch those at all.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't see any of those, but I did see on release. So I'm trying to remember the release dates here. Solo was before 7, right?
We actually
Was it after 7?
7.
Yeah,
Rogue
7.
One,
7, Rogue One,
Rogue One,
Solo.
Solo,
Last Jedi.
No, sorry.
Last Jedi,
Last
then
Jedi, then
Solo.
Solo.
Yes.
Solo.
Yeah.
You had 7, Rogue One, 8.
Solo.
Solo. That's the order I
Yeah.
saw them. And then after 9, I think, is when I came back and watched Clone Wars first,
Mm-hmm.
all of it, and then all of Rebels,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, we were watching Mando while I was watching.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Rebels, I
Which
think.
was a fun.
I remember that
Which is
because
a
you were getting
great
some of the
connection.
parallels with the Ahsoka character.
Absolutely,
And getting to see both sides.
and the
Yeah.
history of Mandalore, and
Yeah.
and how Maul, the Darksaber, all that fit in with Mando. I'm like watching it at the same time, which was cool. And then
Yeah.
so then after that, I finished Rebels, and then we had Boba Fett.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
So that's the correct way.
that's the correct way.
if
If you
End the
want to
podcast.
love it,
you wanna
End the
love it.
podcast. Nate, go quiet.
No.
Uncle and I will continue 30 more minutes.
so I watched it in
That's
the
great.
order that they were made, other than Rebels and
Yeah.
Clone Wars.
I
that they were released. You guys couldn't. Well,
So I watched.
kind of you could, but
I watched. You introduced myself, Matt, my older brother at the time, would have been the 2 oldest that
Yep.
that were really
Yeah.
of the age. I would have been. So we watched. I know there was like a 2-year gap. So let's see. Phantom Menace was what, 99? Would have been 99 as Phantom
yeah, I
Menace, and
think
then
so.
2002 and 2005.
Yep.
Right, 3 years apart. So I was 8 years old for Phantom Menace. The 2 years prior to that, I know that Matt and I had been writing. I could barely do any writing. Matt was much more of a writer at the time, but I was about 6-ish. That 6, 7 verge of when I watched A New Hope.
Yep.
And then upon watching A New Hope, immediately, A New Hope, Empire,
Yeah.
Return of the Jedi.
in a matter of days.
In a matter of
Not
days.
a matter.
Yeah.
No, there was no waiting in between. There was
Man.
none of the speculation of what happens. It was
Yeah.
watched it probably within the next day or two, watched the next one the next
Yeah.
day or two, and it all hit us, hit me like a flood. Loved it. Especially even I have very distinct memories of, couldn't tell you my reaction to any specific part of the first 3 movies upon first watch, but I
Yeah.
remember vividly being in our grandma's basement at the time with that with the TV that was up on the table that was against that kind of back wall,
It's
and
hilarious.
it had like the bar side on the
Yeah.
right. The
Yeah.
table right next to it had the TV up on it, and we were watching Star Wars down there for the first time. And I remember we loved it. We then proceeded. A lot of my Star Wars memories come at that house too.
Yeah.
Because then Matt and I proceeded to every single time the porch was a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And it'd be like we'd get onto the Star Destroyer and we'd have to go under the twigs and we'd do.
The tree was our Falcon.
We're
It's awesome.
yeah we
The
get
tree
up
was
into
our
the
Falcon.
tree.
We
The
had our spots.
tree
cockpit.
there'd be a couple of different branches that had specific knobs on it, and now all of a sudden it was and now I'm
We're gunning
I'm
TIE
a gunner
fighters.
in the Falcon and
Yeah.
I'm using the thing. And
It's cool.
so I vividly, it's funny because looking back, it feels like I had a lot, like I remember the prequels coming out.
Yep.
I remember it was Matt's, I was 8, it was Matt's 10th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it lined up where Matt's
Mhm.
May 20, yep, so they were coming out in May back then. A lot of
Right.
people forget that
Yep.
December has become Star Wars now, but
Mhm.
it was all
Used to
it was
be-
all May.
Yeah.
And May 22nd, Matt's birthday. May 20, what it would have been 5th, I
Mhm.
think, is when it came out. Matt's 10th birthday. It was 10th birthday party. We all went
to see.
to go see Phantom Menace,
Mhm.
and I was 8 at the time. But it was funny because I had like those 2 years. I guess when you're 6, or when you're 8 when that comes out, 2 years of your life seems like a long time. I was gonna say it
That's a
seems like I lived with the original trilogy for a long time before the prequels came out.
Yeah.
Because I even remember the discussions of like, we're gonna find out how Darth Vader became Darth Vader.
Darth Vader.
And I remember having those discussions. And but yeah, so watched original trilogy. Was just old enough that I watched original trilogy first. That sat with me for a while. Then the prequels. Then similar. What's funny is I believe, and people can correct me on this, I think 2008 is how long ago the Clone Wars show started, because that was Cartoon Network.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
actually Lucas doing it with Filoni.
Yeah.
And I think it was 2008 when it started, because it ran. Then there was the sale of Disney. Then it's kind of canceled and ended. Then, as a way to kind of replace Clone Wars, they launched Rebels in like
Mhm.
2014. And Rebels starts right before or right around the time when Force Awakens is coming out.
And that was on like the Disney Channel, wasn't that?
Yes, I think it was, at the time it
around
was.
the time.
I believe it was
Disney
Disney XD was
XD.
They
the,
were
was
already
the
talking
station
about
at the
it, yeah.
time, and
Yeah.
then everyone had such this, because it's now just only a few years ago that they had the big Star Wars celebration where it was like, Clone Wars saved. We're finally going to finish the
Yeah.
Clone Wars series.
Mhm.
And what's funny is at the time it was like, even though it was a big thing of like, it was on Cartoon Network, here's the people working on it, and now we're doing Disney stuff. We talked about this on the previous podcast. Almost all the people who were working on that show, Filoni, all those guys, moved over with them. So they were like, well, this is the story we were writing. Like,
Yeah.
we want to, as long as we get permission to do this, so I want to finish. Filoni's like, I want to finish
Mhm.
the story we're telling. But I had never watched during that time. I was kind of older, didn't watch any of the. In 2008, I was in high school.
Yep.
And then when that was
Cartoon
finishing,
Network, like,
I wasn't really watching anything on Cartoon Network.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch any of the Clone Wars. So similar order to you, I watched original trilogy, prequels. Then I was aware that the Clone Wars was a thing, but I was like, oh, that must be just kind of a kid's thing. I just didn't really pay much attention to it. Then sale to Disney. Sale, I keep saying that. Lucasfilm is sold to Disney.
Yep.
And Force Awakens. So I watched Force Awakens, watched Rogue One. I believe, Nate, because we started watching around the same time. Did we watch? Because now it's crazy to think that Last Jedi, which is still always debated, it's 2022 now. That was 2017.
Yeah.
That's almost 5 years ago already
Yeah.
that Last Jedi came out. Did we watch? Because you started watching Rebels and Clone Wars around the same time as me. We watched Clone Wars or Rebels first,
Yeah, we did.
which, if you had a choice, I would say watch Clone Wars first, because there's
I
a
would too.
lot of stories that are started in the Clone Wars and are picked up and finished or
Yeah.
continued in Rebels. But we watched Rebels first. I think that we watched it. Did we watch it before or after Last Jedi?
I think it was after. I think
I
it was
can't
after,
remember.
but maybe before Solo. It was around.
Maybe
I
in
think it was
between that
around the
little
time
gap?
of Solo. I think it was around time of Solo.
So Solo was May.
Mhm.
Was May also.
Yep.
As people know, that was one of the reasons why Solo didn't make a ton
Yeah.
of money. Was it came out 5 months
Bob Iger's
after.
Titanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Not the movie
And,
Titanic, the ship.
the ship, the not highly regarded one, the bottom of the ocean.
The
Yeah.
one that failed.
Yes.
Right. Glorious.
Glorious.
Yeah.
It was just the launch problem. It was the problem with the launch.
Yeah.
It was
It
the
was.
time of year, just like the Titanic ship. If that had been June,
That's
no
it.
trouble.
If they would have noticed, if they would have looked in the little binoculars, and they would have seen iceberg dead ahead, and on the iceberg it says Last Jedi came out 5 months ago. Infinity War is literally eating up your entire marketing budget and is coming out
Right now.
almost
I'm
the
just
same
imagining
month.
Titanic like, I think there's an iceberg, but I can't see it. There's some guy on the front of the ship blocking it.
He's holding up.
I'm the king of the... That's not how it worked, I don't think.
That's it.
I think there was a cat there.
In my version of this iceberg too, there's writing etched in on the. Because I said that, why an iceberg? We got to get closer to read it. And then they hit it.
That's the Last Jedi.
So Last Jedi.
Well, now
Then
British.
around the time of Solo, got into Rebels and Clone Wars. Rebels, Clone Wars, Solo, and
Oh, man.
Rise of Skywalker, and then all the stuff
Yeah.
that's. Oh, before Rise of Skywalker, we watched Resistance.
Yeah, we did.
People kind of forget
still
about
haven't
that.
seen
We watched
It
Resistance.
is. I actually really like Resistance for what it is. It's really well done. The artwork is
The artwork's
arguably the
great.
best. It's the best of
The
any
animation's
animation
great.
stuff. It's
Really
such
good,
a cool,
really unique.
different.
Yeah.
But what I would say, and I wouldn't say it like suffered because of this or anything like that. But it's the of the two. It's of the 3 animated shows at the time, because it's before Bad Batch. It's definitely skewed towards a younger audience.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff doesn't have the
Forgot about
highest
Bad Batch.
stakes, and
We'll
and
watch
then
that
Bad
later, too.
Batch.
Yeah, Bad Batch.
In between Boba and Mando. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of my timeline of we got
Yeah.
Resistance, then Rise of Skywalker, and then actually no, Mando.
Right.
Mando is in between Mando, Rise
And
of
then-
Skywalker,
In
Mando
order
season
of
2,
release, then.
and it's just
Yeah.
release stuff from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a lot, right? Even right there, there's a lot of like, well, this is how we watched it, but if you're introducing and you're trying to get someone,
would
I
to
know
change
that-
for
that.
sure. I know
Like-
for sure I would change.
You already said
one
you
I
would
already
change
said
that.
I know for sure one of
Would've
those.
I would have
I
watched
didn't
Clone
know.
Wars before Rebels, and we
So
didn't.
we'll
We
get
watched-
a deep discussion.
Yeah.
But Nate,
Is yours different? A little
I
bit?
think ours is similar, but the experiences are different because of our age.
Yeah, for the
Because I
original
was
trilogy.
younger. I
you're about
think,
4 years younger than I am.
yes, and I think I was introduced to the originals first, just because they were out. Like the prequels, I was still young enough. I was like 4 maybe when Phantom Menace came out. So
Yeah, we probably had at
I was
home.
young enough that there were still time gaps, so I was able to
Yeah.
watch the other stuff, but not.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't really grasping everything I was taking in.
You had readily available
Exactly.
a VHS version
Exactly.
of the original, so you could watch. Where even if Phantom Menace came out and you're 4 years old, unless you're going to see it
Right.
100 times, original trilogy was on at our house. A lot.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. So in terms of the order I was introduced, it was originals then the prequels, but the experience of the prequels I feel like stuck with me more because I grew up with them,
Yeah.
and I vividly remember seeing like going to Revenge of the Sith and seeing that, and that
Mhm.
really being the first Star Wars movie that I really was like can remember specifically being in the theater right now and being excited because I was probably 8 maybe around this
that's what
time.
Well,
Anticipation.
2000, 2005.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
How'd you been in 2005?
Okay,
That's
so
Revenge of the Sith.
2005. Yeah, so I was 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's
that
a
was-
prime- that's a
so
prime Star Wars age.
That was now I was actually being able to understand and kind of grasp what I was going
Yeah.
to see, not just like going to see another movie. Even though we always liked Star Wars, it was still being able to understand the story, looking forward to
Right.
this is the last one of the prequels,
Yeah.
and kind of actually really grasping everything. So Revenge of the Sith, I've always really liked and felt like that was kind of, I don't know, it's always like been one of the ones that I've held close to me because of that experience of being one of the first ones I really
Mhm.
can remember, like specifically going and really comprehending. But I will say when Disney then bought Lucasfilm, it completely revived my love for Star Wars. I always grew up, we loved Star Wars, but it was over. So it wasn't like something I was diving into all
That's
the
right,
time.
yeah.
It was just I liked it. It was good. If anybody asked me my favorite movie, I was like, yeah, it's Star Wars, but I'm not gonna go watch it every day.
Right.
Like that was kind of thing. Then when Disney brings it back, then that's when I really just like dove all in with Star Wars.
It's when you're reading the books. You're reading the books.
Then I
and
start
everything.
getting more and more in love with Star Wars because I was diving back in, revisiting all of the other stuff and rewatching everything. So from then it started to become release order in terms of the films.
Right.
So from there on out, I saw everything from release order from the films. But like Mike, we saw Rebels first
Rebels
around
first,
the time
yep.
Solo came out, and then Clone Wars. And that is one thing I'd probably change is I didn't know it at the time because watching Rebels, I was like, oh, this is following a whole lots of new characters. Like I can watch this first.
When it started tying in, you're like, ooh.
Then it started, but the thing is, at first, I didn't know what was tied in, like, because I'm watching Rebels for the
that's
first
true.
time, so I just watched it and I was like, oh, this is great. Then I go back and watch Clone Wars. I was like, that's why that moment was so big, because this whole, like, I'm watching the moment with Vader and Ahsoka
Yeah.
right before the moment we find out later is Ezra pulling World Between Worlds, pulling Ahsoka out.
Right.
That moment now of her versus, Ahsoka versus Vader was like, I loved it because it was a cool shot, and you already start to establish Ahsoka's character at that point. But without the context of Clone Wars, I remember watching Clone Wars and being like, wow, that completely changes how I view that
Yeah.
whole fight. That changes everything.
Change the whole thing.
So, yeah, so that's definitely one thing I would probably change is watching Clone Wars first. And then from there, we also dive into, Resistance and Bad Batch as that came out.
yeah.
And so then it was just all release order. But so even though our order is probably similar, the experience is probably a little different from just between the original.
Just the
and
age that
prequels.
hits you at. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know what is quote unquote correct or what people have. It would be interesting to hear like that machete order or someone who actually was introduced
Let's share.
in that way.
You guys remember share machete order? Can just to reiterate for our.
Yeah. Do you know it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Go
think so.
for
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So machete order was this. It was a thing. Came out. This is pre sequel series, and the idea was to look at the 6 Skywalker movies and figure out what's the best order to watch them in order to uphold the storyline and everything, and
Yeah.
make it the most, keep the suspense going, and just make it a better all around experience for all
kind
6.
of maximize some of the reveals.
Because we
Right.
talked about the trailer for 3 gives away everything, right?
Yeah.
It kind of does. So, and a lot of people made a great point that the original trilogy gives away
Right.
everything too,
Right.
which is true. So that brought about this discussion. Okay, let's say you're just going to watch the movies for the first time, you haven't seen any. Is it best to watch 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, or is there an alternate way that builds on what we already have to make it even better?
Or is George labeling it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6?
I think there's
Or should you
actual.
watch
I
it
think
1,
there's
2, 3, 4,
actual
5, 6,
interviews of George being asked this too, and he's like,
Really?
"Well, there's a reason it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
You got to
6."
watch them 1, 2,
He's
3.
like, I just wasn't able to do the stuff I wanted to do in 1, 2, and 3
That's right.
first.
But the theory was right. The theory is that if you watch 1, 2, 3, the fighting in 1, it's totally different. You get to 4,
Right.
you're like, well, what happened to these guys? Or the special effects of 1, 2, and 3 is a totally different level.
What happened to
Right?
these guys?
Why is he so
Yeah.
slow? So the theory was, what's the best way? And the guy came up with this idea, and it got a lot of traction online. And the order was 4, 5. And the idea is we're following Luke's trajectory from a teenager all the way up to the reveal that Vader is his father, but no confirmation. Because when I saw it, I thought Vader's lying. Okay, so you watch 4, 5,
Yeah.
set the stage. Then you go back, and if you pick up from 2, we meet Anakin Skywalker at about the same age that Luke is
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
in 4.
Angsty teen.
So now we cover the Anakin path, 2 and 3, which gets up to Vader. And then you come back to the Vader thing, and you go back to 6, and you get the resolution of Luke's story arc, Vader's story arc together in 6. And then if you want, you could go back and watch 1,
Yeah.
because characters like Maul and
Qui-Gon.
young
Yeah,
Anakin,
Qui-Gon.
Qui-Gon aren't in the
Yeah.
last
Yeah, there's a lot of
5
introduced
movies.
and
Right.
ended in the same.
and
yeah.
then and so they
Right.
do add Jar Jar's kind of in there, but you don't. It doesn't necessarily need to be
You don't
there
need his
to
backstory necessarily. Yeah.
enjoy 2,
Although
3, 4,
George
5.
would say he's the key to the whole thing.
He's the key to the whole thing. So that was machete order 2,
Yeah.
3. No, 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, maybe 1.
Yeah. And it's one thing for us to be like, oh, I'd like to go try that. Like, go try it.
Can't
but
do
we
it.
still know
Can't
to
do it.
actually be first introduced in that order, it'd be so interesting. to
Just
hear what
remembering,
someone
because I remember some of
says.
these discussions I've had before too. The big reveal at the end of 3 too is the pregnancy and Luke and Leia, and you have no idea.
Exactly. That's
You
right.
have no idea, and when that hits, because there's no, I mean,
That's right.
there's none of that in Empire. That's something that comes in Return of the Jedi.
That's right.
But that reveal, then all of a sudden you watch Return of the Jedi, with us knowing it and the characters not knowing it.
Yoda
And
doesn't
it's a
reveal
whole,
Leia.
It's a whole different thing
Yeah.
of
Obi-Wan
knowing.
does in
Yeah.
3.
Us knowing something the characters currently don't know.
Yeah.
And then like waiting for them to figure it out
Yeah.
versus being revealed by the characters like, oh, I didn't know that.
Man.
It's just
That's
different.
So-
crazy.
Interesting.
The idea was great. A lot of people have done that. The storyline, that guy who did it introduced his girlfriend to his wife
Yeah.
to Star Wars that way.
Mm-hmm.
Had a great reaction, and you could probably still find info on it because it might be still valid to do that,
Yeah.
and then just move on because they still feel like it feels like an add-on to do 7, 8, 9.
79.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It might be something to try.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think that
So
it
that's a
seems like
theory.
that machete order, if you were to do that, the addition of the later movies wouldn't change that first 6 of how you would do it.
No.
Yeah. It's
Now
interesting.
So if we want to talk about that as a starting point, or if we want to talk about the shows being in between, or Solo, Rogue One being in between,
See, that's what's
Yeah.
interesting because, like, if you're gonna dive in, you really want the full context of that story. Do you throw in Clone Wars or some of Clone Wars into the machete order?
if we want to do this right,
Like, that would be,
we need to not throw in the series. We need to throw in episodes.
you know what?
That's how you really need to do this.
I don't know if you guys have
Because
noticed.
then
this
you
before.
get the story arc that
because then we
tees
grab
this up
these
and
2 episodes from Clone Wars. That fits right
Oh,
in
yeah.
there.
that fits in
These
the
4
Mando,
fit in right
Exactly.
in here.
Yeah.
Dark Saber.
Watch this. Don't watch any of these.
don't watch these.
Skip all of these. If you want to do machete order,
Have you
all right.
seen on Disney Plus?
The Essential.
There's an actual category
I have
that
seen
says
that.
Clone Wars
Clone
Essential
Wars Essentials.
episodes.
Yeah, I have seen that.
Yep.
But
That's
George
great. And
loves
it's like,
that.
It's like, yeah, right. It's like some of them are like 1 episode for the whole season, 2 episodes for that whole season.
Man. Which is essentially trying to, what is the information you need to
For the
support our
story.
live action shows?
To
that's
set
gonna
you up
help
for
you.
our other.
Yeah.
To help set you up.
Who's Ahsoka? Okay, let's play here.
Right.
Yeah.
So building off what you were just setting up there, are we with this initial, because this might be a bunch of different discussions we have kind of one at a time. In this initial discussion, is it in our hypothetical scenario, this is we are tasked with introducing Star Wars to someone,
Yeah.
and we want them to fall in love with it. We want them to be surprised. We think this is the best way to hook them. What is our angle here? What's our group project?
Let me throw out an argument. Let me throw out a debate.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thought. That's a great premise. We want someone to love Star Wars. You know when you go like shopping for washing machines or refrigerators, do they show you the best one first, or do you work your way up to the best
Yeah.
one? For example, if I look at cars and I go, there's this one, the Corvette, and then you go over here and there's this is whatever, is that car going to be valued as well? So I'm getting at, if we start with 1, 2, and 3, the special effects in though, I think they're fantastic.
Yeah.
The sound
they were
is awesome.
groundbreaking.
Oh,
Groundbreaking.
yeah.
Even if you
Yeah.
don't love the movies, great. The fighting is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So good.
Then you go to 4. I would argue that 4 might feel like a letdown. I can't see it that
Yeah.
way.
It's so hard because we can never be
I don't,
introduced.
but I feel like it might be.
I could see that.
The pace
yeah.
is slower. There's fewer locations. There's one
Yeah.
kind of saber fight that's not very.
Yeah.
You go with the
Right?
back-to-back saber fights as you go from Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar,
Two
flipping off the stuff to
Obi-Wan, Anakin.
boom.
Same 2 guys. Like,
Obi-Wan Anakin.
with these, wait, what
Same
happened?
2 guys.
I
Hey,
mean,
listen, I know all of his limbs got chopped off, and I know he's been aging under the twin suns, but even so,
Even
guys,
so.
come on.
Come on.
Go on a walk for a while.
So I would
Do
argue-
something. They stay limber.
Well, you know
Yeah.
my bias, though. I would still argue, in order to not lose in order to make them not be a letdown, I still feel like 4 and 5 need to
I agree.
They need to lead off in the order. I still
I
feel like
agree.
that. Just
because
because
they're so strong that what's hard is I've to build like what you were just saying there. I was thinking about this just earlier today and was thinking, would my quick answer be I would introduce like my son. I would introduce my son Isaiah to the movies the way I did because
You did.
obviously it led to me
worked.
doing a Star Wars podcast and it
that's
worked.
right. You
But-
wouldn't be who you are today.
I wouldn't be who I was today. Also, side
You
side
watched
note,
out of order.
side
People are
note.
like, maybe you should switch it up then.
So this is how we got here.
Okay.
Great.
Oh,
Mando.
Okay, Mando.
Watch a different order.
Plowing ahead.
Pushing ahead.
Pushing
Start with
ahead.
Mando, because
Uh,
I'm in it.
We do random Bill Burr here. But also, while that sounds great, and I literally thought to the moment we sat and pressed record here, like that's kind of at heart my answer.
But
The also
Oh,
truth is
okay.
I didn't have any option. I
That's
didn't have
true.
20 things to choose from.
that's right.
Yeah,
I didn't have. I mean, do you know why I watched 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 first? They were the only 3 out. Like it
That's
worked.
true.
And I'm great. It worked out this way. There's also other people who watch 4, 5, and 6 who aren't doing a Star Wars podcast. Now, I do want to make it clear.
That is the pinnacle too. That is the mark of,
That
you're
is
doing a
the
Star Wars
measurement of
podcast.
is the measurement of how your life has
that
gone.
means you did it right. We
That
have
is the
mics,
correct
lights,
order.
and a camera. We
so,
are.
so this is us. This is us on the highest of high horses right now, saying, "I'm sorry, so and so in the chat who said watch Phantom Menace first. Do you have a Star Wars podcast? I didn't think so. No, just- do you have a Star Wars podcast who you make fun of all the time?
Then I
No,
think
Steve.
you should probably be quiet.
Oh my god.
But all I was saying there is that
yeah.
I wonder if I
built
had
your
20
love for the-
options
it
too.
built-
Yeah.
Would it
Well-
have changed at all? But obviously, unanimously, in
Yeah.
I would say people kind of vary a little bit more in Return of the Jedi more than the first.
Yeah.
There's just some people it's their favorite movie. Some people it's their clear third of the 3.
Yeah.
4 and 5 are pretty much universally loved.
Yep.
So they are so solid that you're like, all right, it's gonna struggle on the effects a little bit. If we can
Yeah.
just remember, this was made in 1977, or came out in 77 and 80.
Right.
But the storytelling's so good, it's so strong. It's universally, especially Empire is universally known as one of the top movies of all. They both are one of the top movies of all time. That you can kind of rely on. Like, I know I'm giving a good movie to
This
them,
is a good right.
but when you start with Phantom Menace, you're like, I'm not giving necessarily the best movie, but there's going to be stuff that's going to look more current
The
than
effects,
Yeah.
everything feel a little bit better.
There's
Still
gonna
not
be-
current today. But
not
they're
current
still,
today. It's
Right.
still going to look old. But the fighting at the end, it's great.
Yeah.
The climax of Phantom Menace, both in space and
Oh,
on
yeah.
the ground, is awesome.
Fantastic.
So you're like, it's pod race. You've got all this stuff. But do you risk losing them, or do you risk not hooking them right away, and then they go in the next one with like, okay, but you're right, it builds and builds. I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough.
I
So,
don't know.
Go ahead, Nate. You had an idea.
No, I was just gonna say that. Think of, I mean, you start getting to the live action shows now too. There's so many people that, I mean, Mando and Grogu took the world by storm. The
Mhm.
merchandise, everyone's
Right.
obsessed with Baby Yoda.
Right.
There's a ton of people that was the first experience with Star Wars. They'd heard of Star Wars but never
Mhm.
dove into it, and they watched Mandalorian.
I know friends of mine who got
Yeah.
hooked
Yeah.
on Mando and went back and
Man.
watched all the movies because they were like,
What
"What's
order
this
did they
show?"
watch them in?
I will have to find
We'll
out.
find
He
out.
said an old Ben Kenobi voice. That means
But
you must
it's-
believe him.
I think some of that is with convenience too. Like when you're watching, like, I don't know. There's something about watching a TV show that, like, if you're watching it with other people, you're like,
Yeah.
I'll sit down and I'll start a show because it's
Right.
a show, and we know that there'll be a continuous story, and
Yeah.
you can sit at home and watch it on Disney Plus.
Yep.
That there's probably because of that a lot of people that were just like, oh, my husband likes Star Wars or my wife likes Star Wars. I'll sit down and watch with them, and then they just fall in love with it because
Yeah.
they enjoy the Mandalorian, so they go back and watch the movies and stuff. It's just interesting because especially like you said, and I've heard it too, experiences of seeing Mando first,
Yeah.
and then they go watch Rebels and Clone Wars.
Now they're in.
I'm like,
And then they're like, there are movies too?
yeah, wait,
Oh, do
Couple.
we have a surprise for you?
A couple of them.
yeah, interesting.
Well, we don't plan anything on here generally other than like the topic.
Yeah.
And Now that I said that, Mike's got notes. I just realized that. No, we do like
No
sometimes
notes.
think ahead.
Sometimes I have notes. Right now, I was reading
No
a
notes.
text message unrelated to Star Wars, so we
Oh.
won't read that here.
We don't read that
We
stuff.
don't read that here.
Behind the paywall.
Send me a Star
you can
Wars
see
text
all
next
of
time, honey.
Mike's
Oh,
personal
sorry.
text behind the paywall.
My first-
No, we won't.
We only
So
talk
the
about-
question I was going to ask, we didn't talk about this.
Subscribe to
Is
all my
it
text
our-
messages.
When we say the best way to watch Star Wars, is it our goal of this podcast to establish the best way or to just banter around some ideas? What I'm getting to is, are we going to vote on the first,
Ooh.
the first thing
Oh.
we should watch, or we just want to kind of talk about it in general?
Ooh.
Well,
If
here's
Chad has any thoughts, that would be fine.
well, here's how I think this is the most Star Wars guys way to
Yeah,
go
Chad,
about
let us
this.
know.
Should we vote right now on the fact? Let's put voting on the table. Are we voting to vote? If we vote yes
I feel
on
like
the
if we're
vote, then we
voting
have to vote.
That is the answer.
Are there how many people are on the live? Anybody?
There's a few.
All right, we'll just
What's
do
the
it.
chat? What's the chat
We'll
thing?
just
Maybe we
do
give it a second. Or will you say just vote?
We'll just do it.
All right, we'll vote.
What are we voting on?
Voting
Whether or not
is
to
on-
continue this podcast.
Whether or not to. No, whether this is the last
it.
broadcast we've ever had.
Are
no.
we going to come up with it?
Yeah, so that's what we'll do. We will give our personal opinion of
Okay.
do we like this? Does this? Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. This will it just like
Yeah,
our
okay.
greatest Jedi, just like our greatest battles. This option will advance and it'll go up against something else,
I
and
like
we'll
it.
say,
Okay.
I like this.
Okay.
So what's
I'll allow
the
it.
first one we were saying was on the table was just
4.
the start with.
Start with 4.
Is it watch? Is this?
I would throw a competitor up against it too.
Start with 4.
Rogue One.
Are we giving a?
Rogue One first.
Are we giving an order of how to go from 4, or just start with 4 and then 4,
boy.
5, 6?
I'd say we throw out 2 contenders.
And they go up against.
We just talk movies first.
God.
Throw out 2 contenders and see if we can knock it off. Knock that one out of the first spot. Because
like
there are some we're not going to start. We're not going to start with Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
So
we're not
we're
going to start with
yeah.
Rise of Skywalker.
So are
We're
we
not starting
just?
with Clone Wars season 3
Yeah.
episode
Bingo,
8.
right.
So
There's a
we're
few
just
that might
voting
be
on a.
first.
Are we voting on an entire order or voting on a Star Wars on a spot, a starting spot?
A spot.
Vote
Right?
on the first spot.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. So we wouldn't
Yeah,
be
yeah,
like
yeah.
on the table is
Here's
1
my
through
order.
9.
No.
Right.
It'd be start with 1. Okay, so
Yeah.
this
So let's
is
vote on the first movie that we're going to show to someone we want. So the premise is we want someone who's never seen Star Wars to love it like we do.
all right.
What movie do you start with?
What's the first movie we start
Yeah.
with in order to launch them on a trajectory? Now, the goal might be to have them love it like we do, but the goal also might be to give them an experience that we didn't have that's actually better.
That might be better.
Yes.
Oh, if they did
As
this
we've already
first,
discussed,
this would mean more.
Nate and I would change, especially with the animated series.
right.
We would change the order in which
Yeah.
we watched it
That's
because
right.
there were a couple things when it happened. I was like,
Yeah.
that would have been a huge reveal, but I already knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And we will not do episode by episode, so we will end this podcast before Star Wars Day.
Yes.
By just
What year?
doing
What
them-
year?
I think episode 5 of Rebels should be first before episode 4 of.
I think Dave Filoni made
A mistake.
no.
McConkie.
becomes Millhouse from The Simpsons.
That's all that is.
So I would put on the table. Nate had a good idea. I would say 4 would be my first thought, and then
Put it up against.
potentially, what if Rogue One
Mm.
was their very first experience with Star Wars? Rogue One.
So it's 4 versus Rogue One. What's on the
This
table?
is actually tough.
I like it.
Because
got
the
my- I've got my
continued
vote.
story. I don't know.
Because it feels like
It fits in great to that time. Do we explain after we vote?
man.
I think I know what I start with, but
Do I?
this is tough.
Right, that's the question. Do we mix
I
it up?
also just
Feels
story
like it's
wise
mixing it up.
want to write out one of these orders that we haven't done before, and then us
Right.
just go through an
Do it.
experience and just think, you know
Try
what?
to do it.
Going from this to Solo felt really good of where the character of Solo was at this point, or starting with Alden and going into just to see what it, just to focus on
Man.
a specific aspect to see what
Yeah.
it feels like.
Man.
All right. Do we have our first vote on the
So
table?
I would say we could vote on 4 versus Rogue One, unless somebody has that's a terrible idea because of this, and they'll throw the
Nate,
whole
we
thing
got
out of
anything?
whack, and that's
Nothing.
fine.
Yeah,
If
nothing.
that's a thought, then tell me why that's a terrible idea. But we should try it.
I like it. So what's on the table?
Now this is not the. Yeah. Okay. Forget it. Rogue One. Episode 4 is on the table.
Okay.
I feel like that's the Gonzaga on the table.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Voting?
Episode 4 is on the table.
So far,
So a yes vote means episode 4 is the first
It's
one.
the
they
start.
want.
The first
Yeah.
one.
A down vote means Rogue One is the first one you're going to show them. Wait a second. I don't know what we're doing. This is a big deal.
This is tough. You're going up against a movie that I want to remind people was first just called Star Wars.
Yeah.
Ready?
Count it.
3, 2, 1.
Oh!
Wow.
Wow.
That was a big deal for me.
That's
Explain.
tough.
Explain.
What is he proposing?
We need answers.
That's the background guy in Rogue One. What
To
is he
me-
proposing?
To me, episode 4 is the beautifully prepared steak. Right?
Mm.
And I feel like a little appetizer
Ooh.
might actually make it enhance the flavor.
Mm.
I think it's a great.
a little teaser taste, a little something to just set your mind right.
Yeah.
But here's why Rogue One, because it doesn't have the quite the same space battles. It doesn't. You don't. They don't introduce sabers yet.
Yeah.
They talk about the Force generally, but
You
you
don't
don't
see
actually
Someone with the Force
see it
Force
come
with
out.
me.
Jedi is not. It's a thing, but it's not a thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a great. We introduce the character of Leia.
Yeah.
We introduce the character of Vader the first time. So imagine you see Vader there, and then he steps onto the ship, the Corellian cruiser,
Yeah.
the Corvette in 4. How does that feel after
Yes.
seeing that guy step? He's intimidating already.
You understand why he's choking. He's
It just,
I think
I think it may
I think
that's
it's
why.
a great
It
argument.
might be a bad idea.
great
No,
argument.
I like it.
That's why.
I honestly
That's
agree
why.
with everything you're saying. I think that storyline by itself,
Mhm.
I completely agree. I think Rogue One, then 4. The only reason I went 4 is because of just the cinematic, features between the movies, between the films, and kind of what you were touching on earlier. Is,
Yep.
Do I want there to be a subtle? I don't know.
You just mean going backwards with the
going
effects a little?
backwards with the effects to 4? Will that dim down how great 4 is? And it might. I'm not saying it will. Maybe you could preference whoever you're telling. By the way,
Right.
just so you know, graphics and things aren't going to be the same as Rogue One.
Yeah.
But just focus on the story. I think story aside, or story alone, Rogue One. But because of that, I just don't want to diminish 4.
So I think Rogue
don't
One
know.
feels like unless I'm remembering wrong, there are tons and tons of practical effects in Rogue One.
I was thinking about
There's
this
not a lot of
week.
CGI.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of. It feels more like a practical.
Rogue One is awesome. I was
Feels
ting
like
about this week about how
It
if I
feels
re-ranked,
closer, even than Solo,
Yeah.
it feels closer.
if I re-ranked my Star
Yeah.
Wars, we've been talking
Yeah.
off
Yeah, yeah,
podcasts recently about just some Star Wars ranking of our personal list of films.
Yeah.
And just throughout this week, I thought I think I want to rewatch Rogue One again sometime soon because I feel like
Love
it's
It's
when
so
I do
good.
my ranking, somehow it ends up lower than I feel whenever I think about the actual
Is
movie.
it just because it's a solo film, or is it?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I don't know, and that's a different podcast episode. I was saying that I think that I'm underranking it often
Yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah, that's.
I
what-
do
yeah.
remember that when I watched it, I walked out of the theater
Right.
and thought immediately, "Is that the best Star Wars movie I've ever seen?" Like, and again, brilliant on their part. They end with the Vader hallway
my
scene.
gosh.
It's the
that
hallway
might
of
be
death.
my
It's
favorite Vader scene.
Fantastic.
incredible.
It's fantastic.
It fills in a lot of the questionable plot stuff of like all the Galen Erso stuff is great. Here's why they got the plans. Here's how they got
Right.
the plans. Here's the actual group.
It kind of
fit
fixes
great.
that. Wait a minute. One shot blows up the whole thing?
It
Yeah.
fixes all the Family Guy jokes
puts-
about it over the year of
Right,
we
right,
love
right,
Star
right.
Wars, but also this is a very questionable thing where you hit one, they have
Right.
a self-destruct button.
There is
essentially,
there is one huge drawback I hadn't considered.
of starting with Rogue One.
Yeah. The crawl.
That is true.
Mm.
There's no crawl.
That is the first experience with Star Wars. The crawl.
There's
Yeah.
also
A
no.
long time ago.
There's
still
also
there.
no John Williams.
Yeah.
There's no John Williams. So those two things though take 4 and go, okay, this is different. feels like a different level.
Yeah, that might actually make the 4
It
better,
might
though.
make 4
You get the
better.
crawl,
Those
you get-
elements
Yeah.
make 4 better. But I lost. Episode 4. Now, what's interesting about that loss is now Rogue One can't be anywhere in here for a while now, right? Or can it?
Yeah.
You can't do 4 and then Rogue One. That doesn't feel right.
I know.
No, yeah.
So we're gonna.
It's
gonna
almost like it's
that's
still.
that's-
It's almost like it's now.
feels-
It's just
That's
feels
a
like an
revisit it,
addition.
yeah.
It feels like a prequel.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of prequel.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. All right, 4 is our winner. Or do we want to take another stab at a show, a
Potential
movie
first.
to watch before 4?
Probably 3.
What would it be
3 would
like?
a perfect one.
I would love to meet someone who, for like the sake of their young child or like watched 7 first. I would just love
Oh, I
the
know.
experience
Oh
of
man.
what was it like.
And I'm
You're
sure there. I'm
introduced to
sure there
Rey.
are. They're just give it a few years.
But my question is, how do they then proceed?
like we're seeing all.
Did
of,
you watch? If you watched
Yeah.
right now, 7, 8, 9, or did you go 7 and then have to jump back and find out who's this Luke Skywalker people are
Oh
asking
my
about? You know what I mean? Because
goodness.
the whole mystery of 7, not the whole mystery. There's a lot of stuff who to Rey's parents, but
Yeah.
the crawl starts with Luke Skywalker has vanished. Well, who the
Yeah.
heck's Luke Skywalker? And then you're wondering that, and then it's a map to Luke Skywalker. The whole movie is about a map to Luke Skywalker. She finds him, Saber. Do you then cut to black, put in the next movie, and start with 8? Or do you
Man.
rewind the tape? Now let's hear the adventures of Luke Skywalker.
Hmm.
Do-do-do-do. And then you hear, and then you get to episode 8, and he says something about, he mentions Darth Sidious. Well, who the heck's Darth Sidious? Start all the way back. I'm just saying.
Who's
there's-
Darth Plagueis?
I think there's so many.
Gotta read the books. Gotta
What
read
I'm getting at here, not to ruin our episode, because I think we've got a lot of, but I think there's a lot of fun ways we could go about this. We're like, what would starting with 7, the best story wise, if you just followed the beats of who they
Man.
talk about and who,
Yeah.
what would be the best way to introduce it? I don't know.
Because
I
that's your
know.
first encounter with Han Solo. It was like, what?
Han Solo. Chewie, we're home. Home. They live on this.
Chewie.
Home, this old hunk of junk.
The
Not
son
Not
of
that one.
Jet?
That not that one. That's garbage.
It's garbage.
That's garbage.
The garbage will
Quad
do.
jumper.
Quad jump. It's
Man,
great.
That's garbage.
Oh,
Quad
man.
jumper.
Despite that impression, we love Daisy Ridley.
We've
She's
got
fantastic.
We need a pilot.
We've got one.
We've got one.
Oh
I love
man.
it.
All right. So what's
Yeah.
on the table against
I love that
I
thinking,
don't
though.
know.
Does anybody have any thoughts?
about 7?
No.
About the just of how
So
that.
like 4, then 1, then 7. Just leave them all sit.
and they just
Then 5, then 2, then 8.
it's just filling
leave 'em
in all
sit.
these little.
Then 6, and then 3, then 9.
Well, what's funny is now.
Did you do 9
Yeah.
after like
yeah.
4, 5, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8,
What's funny
3,
about
6, 9, 1?
Yeah.
Like what in the world?
what's funny about
New
what you're
machete
talking
work?
about
Do
now.
the moody. Oh, it's a new machete.
What you're talking about now is what we're getting a little bit with this era of Star
Yeah.
Wars.
That's right.
Of the filling in, we get this, and we know what happens here. But what happened to Obi-Wan?
What's
Right.
This
Kenobi gonna
time.
do to this order?
What's
Oh man.
Are you gonna watch episode 3?
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying? Are you
gonna
gonna
watch
watch?
episode 3 and then go straight to Kenobi? Series?
Are you gonna watch
And
the
then 4?
beginning? Think of the payoff though. If this show, because the show I believe it's gonna deliver and it's gonna be fantastic. You watch the whole prequels. Maybe you watch 1 through 3. We see this. We've talked about on this show before that Kenobi's gonna be a great continuation of where
Yeah.
things left off with Revenge of the Sith, but obviously like 10 years later. But it's prequel actors.
Yes.
So it doesn't it as far as the continuity, it's not as much going from Alec Guinness here as it is going from 3
Yeah.
pushing it forward.
right.
To then see a young Luke first introduced in this show and then find out that that's this kid that he's watching and that was the son of Vader is actually the hero of the whole galaxy that will then have this entire episodes
You
4, 5,
immediately
6, 7,
see-
8, 9
yeah.
is all
Well, you
is
see
all
Luke
about.
born. You see him born.
That's what
in
I'm saying.
3,
You get
and then
3.
You immediately just see him as a little kid.
But you
Like,
don't
there's
necessarily.
not a
But if
huge
you
jump to
started
being an
with
adult.
just 1, you don't know the significance of him being born, other than like, oh, the Skywalker family could
Right.
continue.
Right.
But when us who grew up with the original trilogy first see Luke being born, it's just like
That's
this
Luke.
is just filling in the piece of that's our hero.
That's
when you
right.
see the baby, where everyone else is like,
Yeah.
oh, Anakin doesn't know he has kids. I
Mhm.
wonder what will come of them. Like
Well,
if
what
you just
happened
start with
there?
Anakin,
Man.
and then you get him in Obi-Wan,
do this.
and then you're like.
Man.
If you're
we could
watching
do
the
it.
Kenobi series and you don't know if Obi-Wan's going to survive, or if Luke's gonna survive, or if he's gonna be successful.
You don't
Because
know.
you've
Take
never seen
volunteers.
Alec Guinness.
Let's
This
let's
is
do a
man,
case
so
study.
hard to vote because
Let's-
I'm now just throwing out these fan ideas
Let's-
of like this fan fiction of just watch. It's
Oh
not even
my
fan.
gosh.
You can watch it like this now if you want.
It's a
Let's
great
do a case
idea.
study. We'll gather people that have never seen Star Wars, don't know the story. We'll have one start with 4, one start with 1.
That's so weird.
We should have
Feels like
mentioned this is our part 1 of our 10-part series.
10
of
part
this.
series. We're gonna
And
settle
we're
the first one today.
Yeah, we're gonna write our top 100 orders. You start now. I just wanna. I'm gonna be like. You're gonna walk into my office and it's a beautiful mind, and I'm Russell Crowe, and I've got all these sticky
Yeah.
notes, and I'm attacking this.
It's
and
like a crime scene with the strings attaching.
It's
to
all
this
it's
one,
it's
and then-
Kaiser Sose. It's usually
Oh,
it's all this
man.
stuff, and it's
When
just
you
like
know when you
this,
say
this,
that
this.
stuff, it's like I always joking with my kids. Like, what happens if somebody's like young and you like teach them just the wrong words? Like, this is a boat. Say boat, boat, right? This house. Say house. And the kid grows up. Can I have another boat? A what? Another boat? You mean a drink? No, boat. I could just throw up the whole
Just that-
world.
Yeah,
That's what that feels like to me when you're saying, watch them all the different orders. It just feels like it would ruin someone's life. In my brain, it's like child
goes
abuse.
beyond.
yeah.
I'm like, you can't do that. It's like teach them
Child
that the
abuse.
color green is red. It just
You
feels
just can't do it.
or like
Yeah.
pretzels are upside down when they're not. It just feels like
Yeah.
if you're
That's
if
a
you're
great
in chat,
insight.
too,
We'll have
let
a
us
whole
know.
pretzel
Yeah,
debate.
have-
We'll
best
put a
way to
pretzel
eat
debate on the
pretzels.
chat.
Oh man, I'm just gonna be more isolated if we do that. Just leave it the way it is. Okay,
we take it to another platform and get another result. That's
so we
great.
got four. We got 4 as the first one. Do we have another one we can throw in there to try to knock it off? Is there a
I don't know. I'm curious if you.
I think the obvious one would be 4 versus maybe 1,
one?
Yeah.
just because you've got
Yeah.
they're titled 1 through 9.
Yeah.
Maybe put 4 versus 9.
And if you're listening live, let us know what order you guys were introduced Star Wars to. Did you start with the originals? Did you start with the prequels?
Yeah,
Let
it'd be
us know what
interesting.
you-
Might
So I
have a
like-
play in this.
And we can continue with this type of train of thought. I like doing the voting.
Yep.
And then also kind of what we've been doing in between of just think of what are the consequences of watching storyline of, like we were just saying, like if you watched the Kenobi series and hadn't seen Alec Guinness's at all.
That's Obi-Wan.
That's gosh.
You mean old Ben?
How long has it been?
Or was it just a crazy?
we're
one?
watching it and they're like, Obi-Wan, I wonder if it means old Ben. And I was like, old Ben? No one means old
Who's old Ben?
That crazy old wizard. That's
You mean the guy with the
That's
same
Obi-Wan.
last
that's
name?
the guy who used to play Joel Edgerton. That was who Joel Edgerton used to play. That's Lars. Whoa, the Twin Sons does something to everybody, doesn't it?
I
Nothing
would say
against
Luke needs to
Lars.
step up his game on trying to figure out mysteries.
Yes.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He is
I wonder if that means old Ben Kenobi. No, there's no relation.
Wait,
No
Sam
shot.
Soli, Obi-Wan Kenobi, old Ben. It's even the same.
Couldn't be.
It's the same pop.
Couldn't be.
That's my
Couldn't be,
favorite
couldn't
line. That wizard's just a crazy old man. He's a
Crazy.
wizard? I wish that was in there.
Yeah.
He's a wizard?
What do you mean, like Harry Potter?
I told you to
Hey,
forget it.
shut up. That hasn't come out yet, kid.
Drink your milk. Drink your blue milk.
All right.
Drink your
Back of the
blue milk.
moisture evaporator.
Yeah.
Back in the moisture. I love it.
Okay,
All right,
4
so
versus 1.
4 versus
4
1.
versus 1.
4's on the table.
Man.
4 is on the table. You guys have 4. 1's close to your heart. Right?
I know.
It is close to mine sometimes.
3, 2, 1. 4.
4.
4 wins.
4 holds up.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think my reason's just the same as Rogue One.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
Starting with 4.
Part of it is part of it that it's great, and part of it is that we want to make sure it holds up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't have to be
yeah.
lost in like.
Exactly.
I was fascinated when you guys were talking about your first experience.
Yeah.
My first experience was in a massive screen in a dark theater with huge volume, and
Yeah.
Your
Way
fir-
better than my.
I was
first
small
your
TV
first experience was on a
basement.
23-inch TV with speakers coming out of the TV, just sitting in front of this little tiny television, and it was the same impact.
Same
That's
impact.
kind of remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we're not giving it enough credit. Maybe it would hold up just fine in any
Maybe.
order. But
Yeah.
are there any other movies that could or any other in the movies or the shows that could step in and be what we would choose as your first anything come
Well,
to mind?
Solo, get introduced to Han and then go to 4.
4?
Then you'd be like, wait, whatever happened to that
What
Darth
is
Maul guy?
Solo? Right.
Solo.
I think the benefit of we've talked about this a little bit, and especially like 4 versus 1. I like the idea of like just like a TV show. TV show, the pilot has to be great, or it has to be good enough that it hooks people because you need people to come back.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the best, and then everything goes. They all want to be the best, and everything goes downhill from there either. Some shows, I would argue, maybe did that. I mean, I there's a lot of. There's a side tangent. I know because I think you introduced it to me. The pilot of The Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fantastic pilot.
Yeah. Yep.
One of the best pilots probably I've seen.
Yeah.
And I actually the show's still going on.
Yeah.
But I've drifted off away from the show.
Me too.
Yeah.
And it just, there's certain storylines that kind of went on and
That's right.
stuff. And it kind of felt like the quality dipped throughout.
Yeah.
But the pilot was so good that immediately I watched the whole first season like that.
Right.
And like had to know everything that happened.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad started off good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at every single rating, the season in episode, it literally increased like this all the way until the last,
Yeah.
like the Metacritic score on, if you like Google TV show rankings, 99% of the last, like the highest
It's
possible
just
score for the
crazy.
last season. And it just went up and it ended on its highest of high notes,
It's amazing.
which is hard and that was intentional. They were like, we don't want to stay with a show until it starts declining
Don't
and then
drag it
stop.
That's
out.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So the advantage of 4 feels like most people would consider that 5 is most people think that 5 is a better movie than 4, but you don't
Yep.
get 5 without 4.
That's right.
Right.
And so you can't obviously start with 5 first. But also I wonder if the 4 being so solid and 5 immediately following up 4 with being so great, and even 6 is like no one, or at least most people don't feel like 6 is just a massive, like I love Return of the Jedi. Some people that don't like it as much as 4 and 5. I get it. There's some stuff about it that's maybe not as much my favorite as the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not such a big drop as far as the feeling of like going from 6 to Phantom Menace, where then some people were really, it was so different
Yeah.
that some
That's
people had a
right.
problem with it.
That's right.
That I wonder if you built up so much good grace because you start off strong that people are like all of us, even if you went through, especially for your generation, a little bit even more, Uncle, of like, you're doing a Star Wars podcast and you lived through the disappointment of the initial feeling of viewing Phantom Menace, or the backlash of the prequels when it came out.
Right.
But you already were in love with Star Wars at that time.
Yeah.
And despite what some
Yeah.
people might say about it ruining their childhood and all that stuff, it doesn't end. It doesn't. It doesn't. That's that direct quote from what
just
was it?
think
The
it's
People versus
hilarious.
George Lucas.
Yeah.
Like George Lucas murdered my childhood. I'm like, well, first of all, you have deeper issues.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that about people that are like my age that ruin their childhood?
Yeah,
Because I
that's-
think
was like-
that's actually an indictment of 4 and 5.
I was
'Cause
gonna say
the
that's
reality is there's no movie that's going to ruin those for me.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Is
yeah.
there's no movie that comes.
We'll
and that's
talk
how
about that when we shift over to our approach.
There's no movie that comes out that
Yeah.
has to
Approach
change
one.
how you feel about the movies you already love.
No.
That's why when
Right.
am I ever at a risk now of feeling like Star Wars is so good I don't want them to make any more because it'll
Please stop.
ruin how much I love Empire. It doesn't ruin like even if some
No.
hit or miss. Like there's
Yeah.
some stuff we even talked about in Book of Boba Fett. We really liked the show overall. There's some episodes we didn't like as much, but we're like doesn't mean I didn't like the first 3 episodes because
That's right.
episode 4 didn't work for me as well.
Right.
Right.
So, but I wonder when we were talking about a starting point that if you start with a little bit weaker, like in episode 1, which we love a lot of the
Do
movie,
we build
but it's-
up?
and then you build up.
Yeah.
Is
But
that
have
our
you already
Office
lost?
pilot?
Have you
where
already
it's like,
lost people? Yeah.
It's
Have you gotten
there.
enough that people are interested, and then you
Right.
just surprise them because it just gets better, or you have to start with that bang of like, we're gonna knock your socks off. It's gonna be great. We're then gonna go dip a little bit, but then stay with us because we're gonna get back up and we're gonna keep.
Yeah.
It's a debate that I don't know the answer to because that's just
Yeah.
kind of
Here's-
the order in which they came out.
Here's an interesting question, okay? So machete order 4, 5, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Is there any movie that comes after 4 in our mind other than 5? Is it possible to step away? Because remember how 5 opens. It's kind of random. 5 opens on Hoth. It's kind of a random.
Yeah.
The trajectory
sure.
of the movie connects us back up, but we've
There's
started.
time passed.
It's a
Yeah.
new start.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
a new thing. The alliance is
Sure.
still going. So there is room there for something different. But does it break up the path enough?
Like it's not like 7 and 8 where it starts with Rey handing over
Not that.
Luke's lightsaber. Yeah, it's not.
Or Rogue One and 4. It's like it's
Rogue
not
One
like
and 4,
right
right.
A
after.
direct continuation.
So I'm just throwing out there. In your minds, can you think of anything that would take the place of 5 being the second movie now in our voting? Is there an interesting turn we could take? You said
You mean
7.
of starting with 4 and then going somewhere else?
Is there an interesting tangent that we could move off to that would be like,
like
ooh,
story-wise? Yeah.
that's interesting. We've got 4 here. And then we introduce something. We introduced 2, like some interesting
We
side
did something
note.
crazy.
Because we don't know the name Anakin. We know the name Anakin Skywalker only from Ben's description.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we introduce 4, and then we introduce 2. Like,
Yeah.
there's this Anakin character here. We don't know that it's his father yet. We just know there's Anakin. Or no, he does know. Yeah, we do, because he says Anakin.
Yeah.
We introduce 2 as this young, his father here. This is his story. He was a great
Just
Jedi.
Parallel them.
He was a great Jedi. We got Luke at that age, and then we got Anakin at that age.
Wow.
Then we jump from, they're both still, Luke's a hero, Anakin's a hero, kind of, with his own difficulties and struggles, right? And then we jump ahead, but you can see the struggle. Then we jump back to 5, where that Anakin has become this Anakin, and now we're connecting the dark side and their trajectory coming together, father and son. I don't know. But is it possible that, because I can't think of another one that would be an interesting tangent other than 2, maybe.
I don't think this is something you would do, but it would be an interesting tangent like you're talking about. If you went 4 and then 7.
That's what
Now
I'm
think
talking about.
4. Think about where 4 leaves off.
Right.
Then you jump to 7, and you
Ooh.
see an old. It ends with you seeing old Luke alone on an island, and you're like,
How did we
get
there?
from Luke
What is
becoming a
his story?
Jedi to getting to an island where he's old, and then also you get Han,
Old Han Solo?
old Han Solo, and
Oh,
you're like,
I'm actually
and you're like,
liking
wait
this.
a second, old Han, we're back on the Falcon. Where have you been?
All of a
this whole
sudden, we're
time?
watching Lost.
You really are. Bomb previously on Star Wars.
And then you
I
just
think
say,
that would be interesting.
but then you just say, it would just say like, you might even say in the crawl, in our crawl, it
Yeah.
says, so many years have passed, and then you're in it.
guys, we see Luke. We see
maybe you
we
don't.
see old Leia.
Yeah,
we see
you
everyone.
See all of
the
them.
princess goes straight to, because again, we really see Leia in 4 is mainly the Princess Leia, because we see her obviously
Right.
being rescued and
And you can get the tension there between Leia and Han. That
Yeah.
There's already something there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get to 7 where they're still not
know.
together, but they were. There's tension there.
yeah.
We get the
They're
death
talking
of
That
about
Han.
almost you'd
We
almost
get the
do a
death
little.
of Han Solo in 7 too.
You'd
This
almost
other
get.
Vader harking back to Vader with
Yeah.
Kylo. I would say that makes a very interesting path.
You see
I
Snoke.
like that
you see
path.
Snoke. You come back to 5, and you see the Emperor. You're like, wait a second.
Who is this?
Well, what's great too is it'll
What
be,
is
and it can be
happening?
played off as intentionally, but obviously, what's the big criticism people, or the main criticism people have of 7 is that it's so
it's
much like
so
A New
much
Hope.
like 4.
That it would be interesting.
It would actually be
watching
cool
those.
to play that
It'd
off.
be cool to play that
Like
off as back to back
connecting
of
straight up.
here's this and now here's this.
Like I just watched
40 years later,
Okay,
here's what
can
would
we
happen.
can we do a 2 podcasts? Can we say the best way to watch Star Wars and possibly the most interesting way to watch Star Wars?
Ooh, I
Because
like it.
I want to do
kinda-
this.
I kind of
None
I
of these
wanna-
ideas are as interesting to me as 4-7 yet. I think that feels great.
That feels.
just
I
feels like
I
It's great.
really feel like I
and
maybe.
just ending with old Luke after watching Luke's whole thing and the first one, not even knowing what the Force is. You get introduced to it,
Oh,
see his story, and then
gosh.
you see Rey handing Luke the lightsaber, and you're like, what? How did
You
got
gotta
to
remember-
this
You,
point?
this
Right.
also you introduce there's so many things that we introduced that we would then
that you'd
the
see
Falcon.
the Falcon, so you'd still get that sort of, oh, that's the Falcon. Oh, that's
You
Hunk of
also
junk,
have to.
what has happened?
You made a
This is all
great
the-
point. We can't get there in our minds, but when I saw A New Hope, it wasn't 4.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars. That's
Yeah.
what it
Yeah.
was. I didn't know there was going to be another one.
No, that
I had no idea.
You didn't
because
know
it's
there were going to
all
be 9
tied up in a
films?
nice
it ends
little
with
bow.
the metal scene.
Beautiful.
The
Blow up
metal
the bad
scene
guys.
at the end.
Now we do see this Vader guy float off into space. And
So
we
it's
think,
there.
wonder what happened to that guy. Maybe we'll get more of that. But there was not.
No,
Yeah.
it
And
very
there
much
was-
feels like a started and completed story, and
Yeah.
there's some strings and some
And-
openings to keep going.
As a kid in 1977, there were sequels, but it wasn't like every time a movie ends, you think there's another one. It just wasn't that way.
Yeah.
And
There were a couple.
I was listening to a podcast about
But it wasn't-
sequels and stuff the other day
wasn't
too.
a sequel
Said
crazy.
people forget that sequels then were literally a cash grab of like, great, you like that? We'll do that thing again.
That's
and it's
right.
like we do that. Well, then we do this something 2 and something 3, and it's like we just repeat the same formula, do
I
it
had-
again, and it'll be great. And sequels were really frowned upon for that because it was like, oh, they're just gonna do it again, and they just hope people love
And
it. just
yeah,
like the
when I was a
first
kid,
one.
I didn't know. I mean, I can't think of.
It wasn't assumed that
I
it would
hadn't
just
seen
do
a
it
lot
now.
of movies, but I didn't know of a lot of sequels. Like I didn't
No, everything is a sequel now.
I didn't know of a lot.
Yeah,
I mean, I grew up later. I thought, okay, Godfather was a sequel around that time.
yeah.
But I didn't know of others. There weren't that. I mean, it's like not like every movie is going to be. They'll make another one.
I was
Yeah.
just even. It's funny you mentioned The Godfather. I was thinking
Indiana Jones,
This
but
could
that was
have-
after. Like
there's after. Yeah.
so, it's
There could be some Godfather Part 2 elements of this too, of like the feeling of, except it's like it's a reverse Godfather essentially.
right.
of
Right. You're
What
seeing
they
the-
didn't have with Godfather,
seeing
just
the
because you
son
couldn't
first.
do it. Yeah, and
yeah.
but actually being able to watch it in this with the same actors is something you just can't do before
right.
because you go to young Vito Corleone and it's obviously you got to get Brando. You can't de-age. They didn't have de-age technology stuff like that back then, but you got obviously De Niro, and he plays it great and
It's fine.
and it's awesome.
Yeah. Right.
But being able to actually see a Mark Hamill, he's supposed to be 19 whatever years old, cut in its end of fall of the Empire, all this stuff, but seeing him and the next time you see him after the metal scene is him with, by the way, one hand. Like you would see him with a metal hand,
Yeah.
all of this stuff that we have no idea what happened to
Oh
this
my
guy. He looks
goodness.
like he has lived the
Yeah.
roughest life. He's got a hood. He looks at a lightsaber, and we're like, we just saw that he had just learned how to train with a lightsaber.
no,
he
you're
hadn't
like-
got to fight with one yet.
But
Mhm.
What is?
but
'cause we
you
hadn't
do
seen
see
him other
that.
than
But
that.
you see that same. They emphasize this what the meaning of this saber when old Ben gives it to him, and you're like, "This is your father's lightsaber." And then when we see that being handed to Luke too
throws
at
it
the end,
away.
you're like,
There's-
Yeah.
I really. This is by far the one that's excited me the most. Of just, it makes me want to go home and watch
You wanna
4 and
watch-
7 and just watch just even those back to back to see
How
what
it
the feeling
feels.
is and if
Yeah.
I'm just following the story. Because again, that
I'm ready to vote.
connection.
And I think
connection
another
is-
interesting thing too.
I'm ready to vote.
I don't think you get, even though the graphics and things are obviously way different, the actual, there's not a huge lightsaber fight. Like, it wouldn't be like going from that to like the prequels where you're seeing Maul
It's not
fight.
like that.
Like, you have Rey versus Kylo and Rey and Finn versus Kylo with the saber, but it's not an
They don't even know
Obi-Wan
how to use it.
Anakin. It's not an
Right.
Obi-Wan
They
Anakin
intentionally
flipping.
wanted to
Exactly.
kind of split the difference, if not be closer to. I mean, I remember when they were talking
Right.
about the. I think it was the Art of the Force Awakens book, and I was reading a little bit of it where they were talking about.
Vader's dead in 7.
And you just see the
Yes.
mask.
There's so much, but they wanted it
I knew
to
he was
fight.
dead, but I mean, they introduced the whole thing. I want to
Right.
continue
Yes.
what you started. Like, what?
They got back to in 7
Oh, that's true.
They got back to in 7 that the feel of the lightsaber is supposed to feel medieval, like holding a sword. And like
Yeah.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
feel like heavy like that. And obviously the actual Kylo saber is supposed to look like
Yeah, crossblade.
like the crossblade to look like
Yeah.
a sword. But the style of fighting it's not the flipping and all of that stuff. That's like you had the one end which is so minimal to then here and
man.
then Force Awakens and even I would say the whole sequel
whole
trilogy is like a
sequel's
nice
kind of
sweet
in
spot
between.
kind of in
Yeah.
between.
Well, there's another element that makes it so interesting. We end episode 4 with Luke flying back in an X-wing, right? And they land. They have the whole medal ceremony. Well, episode 7 begins with stormtroopers evading and Poe trying to get into an X-wing fighter.
Yes.
It's still the center with a droid, a different droid, and
Different
Archie,
droid.
It's different.
Uh,
But we find
You
our
still have stormtroopers, but they
Yeah.
look different.
They look different.
we find R2. R2's the same
R2
thing.
is
We
there.
see R2. He's been low power mode since Master Luke.
But
We're like
I just
R2. What has
3POs?
happened?
Oh,
What has
man,
happened?
I think
they
your
would be
touch on
so
Vader
awesome.
and
Probably
Kylo
didn't
is
recognize me with the red
interesting, too.
arm. Which is
Vader, I was just saying his touch on Vader too is interesting because you get introduced to that character in 4, right? The
Right,
first time
yeah.
you watch that first, then you see Kylo in Episode 7. You immediately go from 4 to 7. You see Kylo's looking at the burnt mask basically, and finish what you started. My first thought would be, what did he start? What's been going on? Where did it go? And how did he die? It'd just be, man.
Guys.
Okay, here's the thing. I was going to say, are we ready to vote? But the implications of this go farther than that.
Yeah,
Because
then,
I can't vote on 7 until we resolve what happens, what our third movie is.
That's what I
if
was just
there are
going to say. Is that what
implications
you
of-
then do?
If setting up 7 as the second movie leads us in a place that doesn't work with any other movie,
Then it falls apart.
it's a dead
Well, then you go to
issue.
Solo. You just confuse everybody.
It's a solo trajectory.
This is all just
Young
so
Solo, old
we
Solo.
set
young-
up we set up Solo as the main character.
Solo saga.
This is great.
Is there an argument for 7, 5, or is it an argument for 7, 8, 5, or
I'm trying to think.
7? I would go back to prequels and throw in 2 or something, or even. I feel like young Anakin is its machete order. It feels like a separate thing.
Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace,
Yeah.
just because that age of character is not fitting
Yeah.
with the age of Rey, with the age of Luke, with the age of Anakin in Episode 2. It feels like a pre.
And
And as
both
much as
Qui-Gon
we
and
love-
Qui-Gon and
Maul
Maul.
I was
are
gonna say,
gone.
and as much as we love a lot of the stuff that we got
That's
in
right.
Phantom Menace, as far as what you need for the essentials of the Luke story, of the
Yeah.
Anakin story, we learn most of that stuff. Now, where it would be interesting is, depending on how this Obi-Wan show goes, I would say that it then just becomes essential whenever you watch the Obi-Wan series, you have to have first watched Phantom Menace.
Right.
Because there's a very good chance that Qui-Gon's going to be in it. There could be some Maul type connections,
That's right.
possibly. Obviously, before you watch Rebels, you need to know who or Clone Wars, I guess, who Maul is. But
I just
there's,
got a great.
But
great
I was
idea.
gonna
Yeah.
say, but that's kind of more of a filler before the Obi-Wan series. That would help with that.
Right.
I got
But
my
it's
third.
not necessarily. Yeah, it's not necessarily
All right.
essential
All right.
to the main
All right.
story.
Got my third.
Okay.
4, 7,
This is crazy.
This is wild. I love
4, 7, and you're wondering what happened with Vader. 'Cause
Right.
He's dead.
Yep.
Instead, you jump to 3, and you see
How he
how
became.
he became Vader that led to 4. So then you get the Obi-Wan. Now we're getting back to old Ben. We see Obi-Wan. You skip some of the stuff from 2. You would miss out on some of that because
Yep.
some of that does lead into 3. But you get the
Yep.
main points of seeing Anakin as Anakin
Mm-hmm.
and seeing that turn and what caused it, and showing the weight between Obi-Wan and Anakin becoming Vader, how the shift of the galaxy turned from good to evil.
But now that would reveal that Anakin is Luke's father before Luke would find out in 5, because
That's
the very
true.
end you would get
Yeah.
the twins. Now that would maybe just make that scene more shocking. Like instead of the "I am your father," that becomes "I am your father" doesn't become shocking to us as the audience. It becomes shocking just to Luke.
To
Well,
Luke.
that's it.
Where the big scene to us watching when
Yeah.
they have kids, when Anakin has kids, we're like, oh, who's it? Luke? What? Like it would be where when we were watching
Right.
Revenge of the Sith
Yeah.
in the theater, we're like, oh, we're pregnant. Oh, she's pregnant with Luke. And
You're
we're waiting,
right.
Luke, and then twins. Oh, because Luke and Leia.
Well,
And
that's
you're
the,
waiting for it. But then when they give those names, and
Yeah.
if you had first watched that and they're given the names,
Yeah.
that would be the jaw dropping. And then we would be in
True,
on
but
the
think
inside
about-
scoop when Vader is
That's
saying,
true.
"I am your father." We're like, "It's true, Luke. Like we know it, but Luke doesn't want to
Yeah.
believe it."
Right.
And yeah, it does. It just changes the
changes that,
perspective. But
yeah.
it also makes you then think, because Kylo's talking to Vader.
Siri has some
Siri is
thoughts on
gonna
the
solve.
matter.
his
That's the dumbest
grandfather.
order I've ever heard. No, I'm just kidding.
Kylo's talking to Vader as his grandfather. So we know that, right? In Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Then we might.
So we know that, but then when we see that Luke's
we're wondering, is it
Kid-
Han's
Place of my
dad?
son. We know that.
We're wondering, is it Han's dad? Or is it, because if you say my granddaughter,
Exactly.
then
He's
we're
the
debating,
grandson.
is Han
Because they don't
Vader's
say.
son, or because he
Or
just says
Leia.
grandfather. And,
He says
and
grandfather.
we would know, obviously, because when we watch Force Awakens, we know that's because Leia is his daughter.
Yeah.
But we might be wondering,
I
is
love
Han
this.
Solo's dad
I love
Vader?
this.
It's just a different twist. No one ever in any Star Wars movie has ever thought.
Could that be
Could-
Han Solo?
Could that
as
be
Darth
Han
Vader?
Solo's dad?
Oh my goodness.
But
Yeah. But then you get
Richie.
that. But so then the weight of that reveal when you find out. Then when Padme has Luke and Leia in 3, then you're like, wait, Luke, who's our hero, is actually the one that's in between all these two. His dad is that, but his nephew's
Interesting.
now Kylo. It'd be like puzzling that in reverse order.
again, people.
Interesting.
This is my little tangent for the. This is my little snark. More runs. No, but this is again the great parallels between Rey finding out Palpatine is, we've had this discussion. People are
Right.
like, oh, Palpatine. It's the same thing Luke went through in a good way though. Of
That's
like,
right.
despite the fact that your dad at the time, especially to us as the audience, Vader's the face of evil in the galaxy, not Palpatine. Palpatine's behind the scenes. We don't know much of Palpatine.
Right.
Vader is the one who is literally choking people.
Yeah.
He's the big menacing threat of the galaxy.
Yep.
Despite the fact that finding out that Vader's his dad, he chooses to not go down that path. Instead, is actually so determined that he can even turn his dad back that he does. Despite the fact that she finds out that she is nobody from the sense that she doesn't come from great royal light side blood.
Mm-hmm.
She is someone who was on her own and was left, but she comes from the direct line of evil. And despite all of that stacked up against her, she chooses the light and becomes good. But it's funny because people don't necessarily always like look at that as the same thing. People are like, that's such a stretch. Well, it's the same thing Luke is being Vader. It's
Exactly.
just despite
Yeah.
that, they overcame it.
That's right.
But that was my little tangent. Had nothing to do with order.
I'll allow it.
Oh wow.
final order.
I think I got just to continue this order because I think this is crazy what we're doing.
final order. I just keep saying.
4, 7,
7.
3,
Whoa,
Right?
Whoa.
Yep. What are we
5.
Well, what
Whoa.
are we here?
5. We
Oh,
get
softy.
I'm your father. So all of the
And
lineage,
Luke's hand cut off.
all the
Just like
lineage.
that.
Yeah, we see that.
So
we see
that
Luke's
so then
hand,
we would
that
see
makes
why
sense.
when we
Yep.
see him in 7, he's got his metal hand.
Everything now in terms of the relationships, the lineage is resolved except for Rey.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go from 5 to 8, and you see where Luke was and wanting to destroy him, but he didn't. Or wait, no, that would be 6.
I was gonna say because you obviously can't get to 9. You don't
Yeah,
want to. You
that's
can't get
true.
to 9 in anything with Lando if you haven't already watched 6.
Yeah.
How'd you do that? We had each other. Like
That's
you
right.
almost see all that. You
So then
want
you
to.
go
You need
maybe
to see
you
the
go 5,
remnants of
6,
the
yeah.
Empire to know why those people
5,
who worship
6,
Palpatine
8,
was
9.
a thing.
Yeah. Interesting.
I feel like this is cracking a tough puzzle.
It is.
Man.
I'm still so intrigued by the 4 to 7.
4 to 7 feels like a
4 to 7
really
feels really
good way to do
interesting.
this.
And it might
I
get
feel
a
like
little.
here's the thing though. Once we go 4 to 7, we got a lot of open-ended questions.
Yeah.
I think it feels like after 7 we need to resolve something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean instead of just going and setting up a little piece
Is it
of this?
possible? Is it possible that we have the death of Luke Skywalker in 7 or in 8? 4, 7, 8. 4, 7, 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then we come back and we visit 2, 3. And then 5, 6.
Mm.
Or do we do 5,
And then
2, 3,
6.
6?
Yeah.
And then because 6 is the culmination of kind of Luke
Yeah.
and Vader's story arc, and 9 is kind of the culmination of the Skywalker, Rey,
Yeah.
really Leia, the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So
and Palpatine. You kind of
and
have to know
Palpatine.
You got to know Palpatine
So I feel like
for 9.
I feel like it would be cool. I could see I could see a good argument for saving 9 for the end. I could make an argument for 6, 9. That's really what I'm getting to. 6, 9 feels like a kind of a cool
I agree.
way to end this. We see the end of Vader and the death of the Emperor. 9, we see
Boom,
the
he's
Emperor
back.
Yep.
There's not that makes that.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a retcon.
And the big,
it just
and the
feels
big
like
twist
Yeah.
now.
that's the story.
Right.
That's what happened.
And the big twist now isn't that he's back. It's strictly that Rey is
It's the
related to Palpatine.
that's it.
It's
That's
the
it, yeah.
not to go all horror genre on us. It's the It's Pennywise goes away 27 years later.
Yeah.
He
He
comes
comes
back.
back.
That's the thing.
That's
that-
kind of how it
Man.
was.
The evil's
So-
defeated. It's defeated for now. Put away. He's not finally defeated until the.
I would make it if we could work backwards. Right, so we got our
we need
got,
I was just thinking we need a whiteboard.
we need a
Right?
whiteboard,
Check
right?
this out.
And then so we know
We
what
could
it
do
is.
it. I feel like
'Cause I like that.
Do you guys feel like 6, 9 could be a culmination of
Yeah.
this?
I
If
think
that, if we
it
went
works like
backwards,
four-
then
Here's
could
the
we
thing,
do?
too,
I think
because-
6-9 works similar to 4-7.
It
Like in a way of
does.
like that. Like you get
Questions,
him there in the same
questions,
style, the
answers.
same
It's weird
actor you're
because-
filling in.
I feel like the same for 5 and 8 also. Because you get
I do.
yeah.
You get Yoda and Yoda. Gosh.
Yeah.
There's
I don't know.
parallels there.
You get the I'm your father. Well, honestly, I feel the same for 6, 9, but 6, 8 even works well too because you get to see Luke getting angry, his aggression
That's
about
right.
to kill Vader.
That's right.
And that directly ties over to Luke's moment with Kylo.
Absolutely.
So even that feels like you could go from there, from 6, see it resolved, but then see later, wow, this one really must hit different because he actually went into hiding and things because of how he treated Kylo.
And going from the prequels, having kind of recently seen the prequels, and then having 9 come just maybe a couple movies later too, the threat of Rey giving into her anger when we just saw what happened to Anakin, maybe would make that feel a little bit more fresh too. Of like the whole Chewie moment, and us being like, it's happening again. We just where I
Right.
think when we watched it this kind of far removed from when the prequels came out, we knew that this is what Anakin's fate is because we knew who Anakin
Yeah.
Skywalker was before
Yeah.
we watched it. But when you're watching it and it's kind of fresh, and then a couple movies later you get Rey, and we're like, we just saw this. Don't fall for the same
Don't
thing
do
Anakin
it.
just fell for.
Right.
Don't give in to that.
Wait, so are you
and you
saying
get
go
Luke
3,
going away.
9?
No, I'm just saying that.
Because that would be crazy.
I'm not necessarily saying 3-9, but I'm saying if you go when you back to 3, and then maybe you go to 6-9 or whatever, but that it's
Yeah.
close enough that whenever if you've watched 3 kind of recently before 9 is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
That I think the threat. I think that you would feel. One, I think that if you watch 3 and then maybe 6, 9, that you're much more afraid of Luke accidentally going to the dark side because
Yes.
we just saw his dad.
We
do
just
it.
saw it.
Because you know it's what is possible.
And then we saw him not do it. We saw him give in and then not do it. And then we see Rey do it, and we go, "Well,
We're
split. We've seen Anakin
Could
go.
go either
We've
way.
seen Rey, and then this feels like this is up for
we've-
grabs.
Exactly. We've
I
seen
love
Anakin turn.
this.
We saw Luke resist. What's Rey gonna
What's
do?
she gonna do?" And then we see her accidentally kill Chewie. And we're like, "Well, she's starting down the
Man.
path. It's
I
already
love
going,
369. I love it.
right?"
Here's one thought though. Okay,
We're
so
coming up with the greatest order.
so
ever.
here's
We
one
need
thought.
Post-it notes and write this down.
We need to post this.
Here's
in
one
our
question about
community thing after this.
we should.
Post it.
we
We'll
will.
post it on
Wait a
there.
second.
We'll make our
While
order,
you're doing this, I'm just
and then
gonna
we'll
open
let
a note
everybody
so I can
tell
just
us
write this down.
how stupid we are.
Yes.
That's what the
They're
internet's
gonna
for.
our moron shirt is
Yeah.
gonna sell out after this episode.
There's an argument the internet is to tell every great idea how stupid it is. That's the
Yeah.
purpose of the internet.
That is true.
Here's the thought: 7, 8, 9. Do we ever in 7, 8, 9 talk about the redemption of Vader? Is that in there? I'm trying to think of
The
a moment.
redemption.
Does anybody
No.
ever say
Mm-mm.
that's how Vader was? That's how Vader turned to the light. He didn't. He came back to the light in the end.
7, 8, 9. I don't think so.
So here's
the
Because
beauty of
Kylo
it.
wants to live. Kylo lives in this world where he believes Vader just stayed Vader.
So
till
here's the
end.
beauty. So we watch. So we go
We jumped
4.
to that Boba Fett episode.
Beautiful. So we go 4, right?
I'm writing these down.
7, 8.
Okay.
2, 3. We still don't know if Vader ever turned good. We still don't know. We still don't know
Yep.
that Vader was ever redeemed. So we're talking. There's Luke Skywalker, who's old.
Yeah.
Ben's talking about, I want to continue what you started. We don't ever know that Vader turned good.
Yeah.
We don't know. He kills Han Solo. We think it could be Han Solo's father, who was Darth Vader. Right?
I still love that twist that they've never
We do
hinted
not
that once.
know. And then we see 2, 3 where he turns evil.
And now you know
That's
Luke,
how he did it.
Now you know Luke's related.
And now we knew Luke's related, but Vader is still evil.
Right.
He's the heart. And then we see 6. Oh, the Emperor is the one. I mean, we see him in 5, but we don't see the Emperor until like really take control. 6, we see that happen.
Plus,
Vader's
we see the
redeemed,
Emperor
dies.
also turn as well in 3.
That's right.
We see that twist happen. So both
see
of them
that
at the same
happen.
time, we're like, that's the Emperor. They're together.
Then we resolve that in 6, where Vader turns good, Emperor dies, and then everything comes to the head in 7, where we have
In 9.
in 9, where we have. That's the only time we find
And then
out.
that big twist is Rey becoming, or Rey is the
Rey
Palpatine.
is the connection between the Palpatine.
I didn't think about it
which
setting up
connects
that.
back to Skywalker.
Like you were just saying too, of the
Man.
good from 3 to 6 too, of the Palpatine reveal.
Yeah.
Like even though it's set up and like there's teasers, there's stuff that we knew because us growing up with the original trilogy.
That's right.
When you see his face and the cowl and the way he watched your career with great interest, he's saying
Yeah.
these things, you're like, oh, that's clearly him. But you get so little of him until Return of the Jedi at that very end, when you get the whole throne room
And
stuff.
9.
And 9.
We hold those back.
So you get
Yeah.
3, you get all those
You-
big bad Palpatine in a row,
And
which
you
is
get-
just so great.
Which is the
Which is
culmination,
great
man.
because he's the big bad.
He's the
And
big bad.
you see Anakin throughout too, in terms of him in that moment of Windu, right?
Yep.
He helps Vader or helps Palpatine and turns, and even he's like, "What have I done?" Then you go to 6, right?
6.
And then you see him redeem himself, not just to help Luke,
Right.
but you also see that same opportunity where he's like, "I've been here before,
That's right.
and we just saw it."
The
And then he
lightning, the
saves
cut
him.
off, hand cut off in the same moment, and Mace
this
is thrown
time
out
I'm
a
gonna-
window.
Yep.
Emperor's thrown down a shaft.
So we've got
Then
right
you
here.
also hear him as a Force ghost, Hayden Christensen, in
And you see
In-
that culmination
in
right
9.
after. Yeah.
when Rey's
That's
talking.
right.
You hear Anakin,
That's right.
so
where-
you hear that
in our
too,
order
and-
here.
Oh man,
In our order, where did we say 5 was?
I was arguing
'Cause
4.
right now-
I was arguing 4, 7,
7,
8, 5.
4, 7, 8, 5,
So you
2,
get that twist then.
Yes. 2, 3,
2, 3, 6, 9.
6, 9, 1 tells you how it all started.
I love
Maybe
it.
that doesn't make sense.
One,
with
if
certain
you've always
aspects.
wondered where Jar Jar is and if he's ever been banished from
You
anywhere.
go from the biggest thing to
I don't
Palpatine
know.
to just.
Are we
Boy.
diminishing 5? I feel like it's
So in this order, we've got 4, 7, 8,
4,
5,
7.
and then 2, 3, 6, 9 would be the order. For
Wh-
anyone
is-
watching, this is not our rank of how of
Our
which movies we
favorite-
think are the best or our favorites.
Yeah, to be clear, this is not what the thumbnail is suggesting.
We're
and
coming
that
with-
this is the best way to watch Star Wars.
But this is in that vein of what would be the
Unique.
what's a unique of us and people watching. If you're watching a Star Wars podcast, you probably love Star Wars. At some level, you are interested enough to listen to us talk about Star Wars.
right.
So, what is a unique way that would deliver an experience that we think could
Yeah,
maybe pull some things out or emphasize some, like pull some things to the light and emphasize some things that
Create
emphasize some reveals, create
right,
some different
interesting-
tensions,
more
some interesting
tensions, more
stuff.
make you think, like you said. Is Han?
Can that possibly be? Can we do something real quick here, or not real quick? I got all night. Could we do something here where we just think about? First of all, are we completely off kilter here with what we just
I honestly think that'd be crazy.
4, 7, 8, 5, 2, 3, 6, 9.
I think this is an experiment that needs to be. That needs
We
to
need to
happen.
do it. So, but just real quick, what if we just talked ending, beginning, ending, beginning, ending, beginning? See if
Just
there's any
recapping
major
each of those.
flaws. Like we know the ending of 4, the metal,
the big
blow up the
twists.
Death Star, medal ceremony ends 4. 7 starts with the First Order with Poe getting the getting the thing. We don't know what it is.
Yeah.
This will begin to make things right. First Order, X-wing. That's the beginning.
Guys, even 7, we're going to see, which is great. This is just the highlights even more. How does 4 start? What's the first shot of 4? Star Destroyer.
Star Destroyer over Tatooine.
What's one of the
two-
first shots of 7? Crashed Star Destroyer in the sand. And it's like we see the Empire at its height, and now the Empire
At
is
its lowest.
As lowest. We don't know what happened.
We think it might be defeated. Actually,
We think it might be
don't know.
defeated.
We hear
You
the
don't
First
know.
Order. You're like, wait, did the First Order take out the Empire?
Who is that?
Yeah, that's a good mystery. Yeah,
Like, wait a second.
I think that's a great connect. The 4 and 7 is a great thought.
I think that is a
it's good.
How does 7 end?
7 ends with the lightsaber hand.
Lightsaber
Yeah.
battle, and then they're picked up by the Falcon
Yeah, picked up by the Falcon.
and taken off, right?
Yeah.
And then she goes to. It ends with her on.
Handing the saber.
And so I don't feel like you
Handing
can.
the
I don't feel like we can adequately separate 7 and 8. It just feels too close.
It's such a cliffhanger
Because it's
that
right
having
there.
a
It's right
whole.
there. So that's why I think 7 goes to 8, and then 8
Plus, it
ends-
honestly will make you see that other side of Luke too.
It's right.
Where now you just saw 4 really,
Just a
Luke
kid.
becoming,
Right.
learning about what the Force is. Then you see this 7 and 8, and you're like, how does he get back to this? Like,
That's
how does
right.
he get to that point?
Wow,
Yeah.
watching
So
being
it-
introduced to Han Solo in 4, and then seeing the death of Han Solo right after in the following
Yeah.
movie. Of
Is that
just
going to
the
cause
tragedy.
trouble going from 7 back to 8, then 5? Are we gonna? Is it just too?
I mean, he's alive, but it also
Is
might.
it too much?
It almost might make you look at him and be like, man, he's so cool, but it's a bummer that this is where it ends up. Like knowing where
Are we
it
giving
ends with
away
7, you're like,
Han
You're like,
Solo's
"Ah."
story too soon.
Possibly,
I don't know,
but
might-
but then you're also
But
getting
we're
to
not
see.
the-
Then you're then gonna follow up that like, dang, Han died. With then followed up with some of the best Han
I
Solo
wonder
you've
if-
ever
what
seen.
other
like
adventures
Yeah,
you
exactly.
find.
exactly. It's more
Then
so
you get-
like
oh, but-
admiring what.
But I never got to see what
character-
happened with him and Leia. Well, great, because here's episode 5. That's gonna get
Yeah.
you. Wondered what happened. Here's their
Here's what we
love
need to
story,
do.
here's
Once we
all
set
this.
our order, we need to create edits of these where the episodes are numbered in the way that we have ordered it.
Ooh.
So that 4 is episode 1, 7 is episode 2, 8 is episode 3,
this is
so that it
this
lasts.
is wild.
We'll put it online so they can take it down in 5 minutes.
I know we've
I
said
like
it
that. I like that.
in 5 minutes.
Okay, so 7 ends with the saber.
7 ends with
Yep.
saber
8 starts
handoff.
with the saber,
Saber ends with Rey lifting rocks.
lifting rock.
Kylo.
But
Luke
you get the Luke. You get
You
the
get the
Luke,
revival.
Yeah, and
Luke
you get the Luke
dies.
Kylo interaction.
Luke dies.
Yes. Okay, and the very end is Falcon again, right?
Falcon. Yep.
They what happens if they fly off the Falcon?
They fly off with
they,
the
we have
remainder-
everything they
yeah.
need. They have everything they
Everyone
need.
who survived the attack on
Broom,
Crate.
Broom Kid. Is,
Broom Kid.
He gets that. He's inspired
That'll be the
hope in
biggest
the galaxy.
cliffhanger.
So and we never see him again. Okay, so that's 8, and then we
Yeah.
talked about going back
to
to
5.
5, which is like Luke's alive again,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Solo's alive again, and it starts with
Yeah.
man. It starts on
You
we
go
find
back
out?
to see their.
You want to
just
see? Yeah.
jump right into a battle.
You
on
want to know what
Han.
happened
right
with,
there,
Which is also why I think that works, though, is that there's some time that's passed between 4 and 5.
right?
Is that with 7 and 8, as much as we were saying earlier, like you got to fill 4 with 5 or follow. At the beginning, we were saying, doesn't 5 have to be second? But because 4 does feel like a completed story that has some openings, it doesn't end on a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Actual time passes, like in the story, where 7 and 8 is literally the moment it ends,
Man.
the moment it kind of has to continue
Yeah.
there.
Here's what we have to do. We're going to create our order, and then we're going to create.
The final.
We're going to create the bumper connections between these episodes. Star Wars Guys presents the Star Wars Guys order,
The Star Wars.
and we
guys.
say if you want to follow along with us, this is the first video you watch, and then you watch 4, and then watch our short video, and then watch 7, and then watch our short video and watch 8, so that we can connect you. Like we can say 10 years later, this is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
This is
We do the crawl.
The crawls work fine, but we just set the time. That's all
Yeah.
we do. Set the time.
Yeah.
set the times. You know what you're about to
Not
get
give
into.
anything away. Okay, so 7, 8, Are there big problems with going from 8 to 5? Because it starts with Luke Honnell, buddy, do you read me?
Honestly,
That's
no.
really
I
kind of
actually-
cool.
You might like it in terms of
I think that losing both of them in back-to-back movies
get 'em.
essentially, and then
Yeah.
you get them in their prime.
Yeah.
We get Luke training now. We get to see him go. The only thing there is we haven't met Yoda yet. So 8, we meet Yoda, and we think, who's that? But you haven't got Yoda yet until episode 5.
How does that fit in 8? That's right. He comes and talks to him
yeah.
as a Force ghost.
And he
Page
talks
turners?
to him about
Are they?
his always
Yeah.
looking beyond, never his mind on where he was.
Failure.
It's he's the same quote from.
Most of all.
That's interesting.
Because what's funny is you hear it when you hear it the first time in 8, maybe.
wait.
When you hear him telling him that advice, though, of always looking beyond to the horizon, never in his mind on where he was, what he was doing. He says a similar version of that quote in 8. But then when we would see it later in 5, it would then probably feel to us like it's the second time of him saying it. Like, oh, he's
Yeah.
been saying this to him. He told young Luke this, and it's the same thing he
But
told him
what
before.
would it be like seeing Yoda as a Force ghost, and then going back and seeing him alive, and you're like, oh my gosh, he's alive.
And then you go in the prequels and go,
That's
holy
it.
cow, Yoda
That's
could
it.
do flips?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then you see younger.
Is it possible you?
All right.
Basically,
Is it
our
possible you
our
go
version of this
7-5?
shows everyone we introduced them to you first dead.
Everybody's dead. Then we go
Basically.
show you
Everyone
what they
dies,
were.
and then we go show you
It
them in
could've
their
been.
prime.
Is it
I
possible?
think it still works.
Even though
It's just
7
different
goes
order.
directly into 8, they pick up right where we left off.
You don't have to wait 3 years. They just have to wait 2 hours.
Right.
If
Is
we-
it
what's in between.
possible you jump from 7 to 5, and then 5 to 8? Flip.
You mean leave the cliffhanger for
leave
just
the cliffhanger, go to 5.
I
and
like
then go
4,
back?
7, 5, 8. Feels pretty good because you get the 5, 8. There's a lot of connections there.
There's a lot of connections.
Yeah.
4, 7. There's a lot of connections there. Here's the thing. We go to 7. Han Solo dies. We go to 5. We got Han Solo alive.
Mm-hmm.
Luke alive. We go to 7. Luke dies.
You mean 8?
8. Luke dies.
Luke
could-
dies.
Ooh, I
3.
do-
Luke's born.
Luke's born.
listen. I
He's
do.
alive, he's
I
dead, he's
do
alive,
like
he's
that
dead.
we. I do like that we leave 7 with the little cliffhangers on the edge of a cliff. Basically, he's sitting there, and you turn, and Luke's got the big hand. The hand reveal would be big because he's got no hand, and
Yeah,
then we
that's true.
immediately go to 5 and find out how
See
he
how
loses
it
his hand.
happens.
Yeah.
We are, and the big question. In the big question, we set up 4, and I think going away from Vader for two straight movies might be tough. If we did 7 and 8, so I think you're maybe right that I think 5 in between, because we gotta
get back to.
get back to Vader a little bit.
I agree.
Plus, I think that also makes Luke, being the hermit that he is in 8, almost more powerful. Because if you see 8 first and you see that, you would actually almost get resolve, but in reverse order of seeing him do the right thing in 5.
Man, I like
And
that better.
5 and 6.
So I think we'd do 4, 7, 5, 8.
Man, this is great.
Maybe is that what you're
This is
thinking,
so
Uncle?
great.
4, 7, 5, 8,
4,
2, 3,
7.
6, 9.
5, 8,
2,
2, 3, 6, 9.
Okay, so 4, 7, 5, 8 feels good to me.
Yeah.
Dude,
There was something about not getting to Empire until the 4th movie that
It's
just
great.
it just was hurting before, and then
I
now
know.
it
Feels
the
better.
3rd feels good.
4, 7, 5, 8 feels
good.
better.
Yeah.
And
You're gonna go.
cliffhanger's good.
You're gonna go 4, 7, 5, 8, 2, 3,
6.
6, and you're gonna get back to 9 and be like, oh yeah, I forgot Ray was in this.
Ray. Who's Ray again? Oh yeah.
But that's a great conclusion because in 9 we also
You
get
everybody.
we get Chewie, we
Right.
Yeah.
get more R2 and 3PO. The most R2 and 3PO we got since 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get what started it all. We get Luke again. We get obviously we get Palpatine, but we get Leia. We get all of that still. We get
Crazy.
oh man,
That is a problem with Ray being
Ray
Out
being
of
introduced,
5 movies
Out
in
of
a
3
row.
movies in
3
a row.
movies in a row.
but she's the one. She gets the big conclusion.
She is
We
the
gave her the big
savior of the
conclusion. We
universe.
Gave her the Skywalker name.
I think it does connect. I mean, think about that connection between Ray as a Skywalker. When we have 2, 3,
Yeah.
2, 3, 6. 2, 3 is the fall of Vader. 6 is the redemption of Vader. 9 is she becomes a Skywalker and completes both of their trajectories.
And how good does it feel to see you seen 6?
Wait.
Luke and his father, 2 Skywalkers going up against the Emperor, defeat him for a time being, and then you get 2 of the Skywalker blood, because you also forget that Ben's
is
Skywalker
too.
blood. He's against
And
2
by
of
the
them
time
again.
we get to 9, we've answered all those questions. Everything is.
Yeah.
But
9
what
in
is
every
left?
iteration of this, it feels like the conclusion of the story.
Does 6
I was
feel
gonna
too
throw a curveball.
finished though?
You were not gonna have 9 last.
No, I think we do, but I was just gonna say, is it possible that you actually have 9 before, like, before 3? And then you see how evil
Oh, man, that's
Palpatine
a
and
tough one.
and Vader turn, and you're like, that's Rey's grandfather.
Good in, Pappy.
Oh, man.
No, I think 9's last, but
The
crazy.
last Rise of Skywalker is so. The Battle of Exegol is so big. I don't
So
know if I
big.
can put anything in front. It
Yeah.
feels like
the only thing bigger is
Battle of Yavin
Obi-Wan
would
versus
feel like,
Anakin.
oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
After Exegol.
Well, I think why that's a good go from I think a good movie right before that is Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Because you get the ground
Right.
battle, the space battle, and the saber battle against like the saber lightsaber and
Mhm.
of
and then you go
Vader
straight to 9.
and Luke and Emperor, and then you get to 9 and you get
You
the
go straight
parallels
and
between.
and
We definitely
Lando.
highlight all the parallels between them.
This actually makes great
But
sense.
you go straight to 9 and you get Lando's conversation with, how did you do it in the past? And we just saw
We
it.
just
And then
saw
he
it.
says, we had each other.
Guys, going
We
from
had just
six
seen
going
it.
from 6
6
to
to
9 is the
9
best
is-
for Lando.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It's so good for Lando.
Well,
how
we've
they do
also
it, they had
we've
each
also
other.
suddenly landed on these. We know the connections between the original and the sequels. In our lineup, we now have 4, 7, 5, 8, and end with 6, 9. That makes a lot of sense with
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
mindset of the characters and
Yeah.
what they're trying to accomplish.
As George loves to say, it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah.
And then 2, 3 feel. I don't know. Is there an argument for putting? I feel like 3 has to come before 6. I
Yep.
feel like that, and I feel like 2 needs to come before.
like 3
3.
3 also has to come before. Yeah, 3 has to come before 9 too.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously 9's
I
last.
think so.
But having 3 before 6 and 9 also emphasizes the going into hiding aspect.
Yes.
We saw that. We saw Luke's aspect, but we see in 9, Rey is trying to do the same thing.
Yep.
And we see Yoda do the exact same thing in 3.
Yeah.
So Yoda goes into hiding. You see 6 there where Yoda's been in hiding.
That's
We're
right.
seeing that kind of coming through. Yoda's dies or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then we see jump to 9 with Luke
Yeah,
We could-
resolving that issue of saying, don't do what we did.
And for anyone
Yeah.
who doesn't know the actual finish of each of the stories, we're giving a little hint, little breadcrumbs to anyone who is wondering who Snoke is when we go straight from 8 to Attack of the Clones. And we go straight into cloning.
Yeah.
Oh my.
We go straight from 8
goodness.
to 2. Because it's also a part of the Palpatine contingency plan
That's
of the cloning
That would
stuff
make-
to
yeah,
get.
and that would make
know
9.
We
why.
wouldn't even know why. Why like someone who didn't know, if they're just reading the Star Wars guy's order of this and they go straight from 8 to 2, like this, that might feel like the most interesting jump of all of them.
Yeah.
Either like there's some parallels between all of them.
8
to 2 feels like,
what?
Well,
in
why
the-
would they take you? Why are they going this route? And it's for the payoff of we're going to the cloning. 2 obviously sets up the turn because 2 to 3. But also just the tie of we just gave you Snoke and we just took him away from you and killed him. But
Right.
because he wasn't the big bad. Because he's a
Exactly.
clone. We go to all the cloning stuff because who's the big
You're
bad?
literally
And
building up.
surprise.
You're
person
building up
behind.
the Emperor,
Vader wasn't either.
Yeah.
and you're really building up the Emperor
Right.
by jumping from 8 to 2, 3, 9. You're building up the whole Emperor's story
Good-
between 2 and
Absolutely.
him with just gathering the clone army, seeing that he's behind everything with Dooku, him playing both parts.
Is
seeing that
This
come
is-
full circle in
Love
3,
this.
and then in 9, seeing him.
Okay,
actually
can I
die.
throw this out there for Star Wars
Is
Day?
the chat
Can you guys clear your
rioting
day?
yet, or
Because I wanted to do this on Star Wars Day. I had a lot of crazy ideas
I
for
wanna
Star
do
Wars Day. We got the 12 days of Star Wars kicking around.
We do.
Can you
God,
guys?
wait
Is
for
it
that
possible you
reveal.
guys can clear your schedules on Star Wars Day? And then I don't know what day it is, and we watch them in Star Wars Guy order.
I think it has to be. I think
Star Wars guys
just-
order.
Watch them though. I mean, I don't know if I could
This
make
would be
it.
I don't know if we can make it.
9 movies, 18 hours,
I'll put this on.
We'll live
Plus-
stream.
Hey,
19
We'll
hours.
watch it.
I
with
will put
everybody.
this.
I
I
think we
will
can do
put
it.
this
I think
on
we
the
do it.
podcast so that they can hold our feet to the fire and force us to do it. While I don't think, I think like you were just saying, I think just from a bodily survival standpoint, it might
Yeah.
not be possible in one day.
Not enjoy them.
But by the end,
We
the,
did it.
The Star Wars guys ruined our lives.
Anyone
awful.
else feel like Anakin right now?
But I do. I'll say on the
What
air,
have we
so we do
done?
it. Whether it's a week by week process, we will, as Star Wars guys, sit down and we will watch them in this order, and maybe as a way to do some of those videos that we can get some content and some more stuff out there for the people to see of us in kind of the shorter form
Videos.
variety. We'll talk a little bit. We'll make some videos about our order and about us going through it. And all right, here's.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to give you our update. We just started. We give a little 5-minute thing of we just watched the first one. We are doing our best. We can't unknow what we know, but we just watched. We started with 4. Here's what we got from it. Obviously, for
Yep.
those of you who know it, can't wait to dive into 7 and see where this. And then we give our immediate reactions after each of them. Maybe give a few-minute video, and we will.
That'd be cool.
Even if it's once a week where we
Right.
watch one of them. We sit down as the Star Wars guys. We watch one of them.
I'll tell you what
Do it.
also might be
Man.
cool. I think we definitely need to comment on these. What also might be cool is connecting. If we watch 2 of them before the podcast and our reaction to
connection.
the connection between the 2.
Parallels.
Going from one to the next.
the poetry.
What would it feel like going from 4 to 7?
I feel
What would it feel like
that's
going
such a
because
good
because
jump.
we're not doing any of them in order.
No, none
Right.
of
What would
them.
it feel like going from 7 to 5? What would it feel like going 5 to
The
8?
only consecutive
8 to
ones are 2 to 3.
2
Yeah.
and 3.
Is our list.
2 and 3.
And is that up for debate? Is there an argument for putting 2 or 3 in between 7?
What's the biggest stuff that happens in 2?
Clones.
Clones.
Mm-hmm.
Anakin slaughters the
Separatists.
Tuskens. I mean, that's the big.
Anakin,
That's the
yeah.
big
Dooku.
slip.
Oh no, that's. Well, I mean, you get a lot of Dooku, but Dooku's actual
But as far as
death
as far as the whole story, that's the moment kind of no return.
Yeah,
for
you start
Anakin. That's
gaslighting.
the.
Yeah,
You went from just an
gaslight
angry.
turn.
You went from just an angry kid to he has now taken life.
My worry about separating 2 from 3 is it doesn't leave a great impression of
yeah,
Anakin.
yeah.
I mean
I kind of
the
feel like
way the character is
It's separating
portrayed.
too.
I
Yeah.
feel like you need 3 as a palate
We need
cleanser
to-
to 2.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
to connect it up with the full circle,
Yeah.
and I think that's.
So
I like
2,
that. I think
3,
that-
then 6.
2,
Yeah.
3, 6.
Could I
9.
ask one thing too before we
Start this. We're doing it now.
lock these in?
Yep.
Because we're gonna lock them in.
Yeah, we gotta lock.
Is
them
it possible that we could take?
That's
just-
impossible.
Is it possible?
in. Even for a computer?
What's that flashing? Is it possible we take the main character's story arc and lay them down against this sequence?
Yeah,
Mm.
See if it works. For example,
I think we need to.
does Luke? I think we talked about Luke, talked about Vader, but we talked about Lando. Does Leia's story arc still work?
In this
Does
order.
it still flat? Does it still make us? Does it drive
Yeah.
the character forward?
Well,
does
think
it
about it.
That's what we
ruin
need to
it?
look
Does
through.
it make it better? Leia or even Snoke or
Yeah.
Emperor Vader? Does it elevate, diminish?
Yeah, we need to see
There's
which
probably
ones are-
some things.
Obi-Wan was the one I thought I feel like we didn't flesh out enough
Yeah,
because he's in all of them almost
Yeah,
just not. Not the
in
sequels.
somewhere or other. Yeah, I mean, but
But yeah,
they're referred. I guess not really all of them, but
yeah.
I'd say the one thing about the splitting up of the original trilogy that doesn't hurt Obi-Wan at all is that you don't, other than A New Hope, we don't get a ton of Obi-Wan in the original trilogy. Like
Right.
you get him in New Hope. We're still starting with A New Hope.
Yeah.
that's right.
You get
the
Force Ghosts.
talking.
You
and
get
stuff.
Force Ghosts,
Yeah.
and
Right.
in 5 you will go to the Dagobah system. There you will find Yoda, the Jedi Master, who we now claim strange me. Sorry, Qui-Gon.
Find another series.
Apologies to Qui-Gon. We ran out of time.
Mm.
But that's him.
Fallon.
That's him having his.
Right.
This is the Obi-Wan late
Fallon.
night show where he's
Right.
having Qui-Gon as his guest. Yeah, the Jimmy Kimmel having Matt
right.
Damon.
Matt Damon.
Apologies, Matt Damon ran out of
Right.
time.
Oh man.
But yeah, so then we would get Ewan. We would get Ewan's Obi-Wan. Well, no, so we would get a little bit of Obi-Wan in 5.
We'd have Obi-Wan, Old Ben, then we'd have 7.
7 where you don't get any except for Rey. You
Right.
do get that
You
right
get
away,
that.
and that
Rey.
might stand out after.
Oh,
Think
he
of how
has
fresh
voice.
that voice would be
That's true.
after just seeing 4, where you hear him the
Yeah.
most. Rey.
Right.
Then you hear, "These are your first steps." And you know, who is that? It's a Ewan,
Yeah.
which is it's again so small, but
And then 5, we're getting
5.
some Force
5 you get
Ghosts.
some Force Ghosts.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan.
We
8.
properly introduced Yoda before 8.
Right.
That
Kinda
that was
cool
the big
'cause-
thing. I think
Yeah.
us getting 5 before 8 was huge because
Well,
you got to get Yoda.
We also
Yeah.
introduced the whole concept of Force Ghosts.
Yes.
True.
That's
Yeah.
5.
Yeah. Surprising.
And 8 makes a lot of sense now. Like, why
Yeah.
is he? How is he showing up?
Totally.
That
Who
makes
is this
sense
guy?
from 5.
Or we wouldn't even know he's dead. We would be
We wouldn't even know he's dead.
we'd be like, "Why is he blue?"
What
Like,
happened?
Some of them are
it's
just
a
blue.
Spirit?
What's
Yeah,
going
that's-
on?
Spirit?
That was a
Yeah.
big cleanup on our part of
Yeah.
I agree.
I think switching and getting 5
And
for
then
8.
2, 3.
And
It's
2,
fine.
3. I think 2, 3 is fine.
Show the connection
Again, I think
between
that
Anakin.
the axing, the killing off of Snoke in 8,
2, 3.
the surprising killing of
Rogue
Snoke
One.
and going to cloning.
Do we put Rogue One in the middle?
I think the surprising killing of Snoke in the middle of
Man,
to then jump straight into a whole thing about cloning would just, I think, would invite the question of, interesting, why did they choose these? But the underlying thing just is, this is all leading to one,
Snoke's
teasing
at the pond.
Snoke's a cloak. A cloak? Snoke's a cloak?
Snoke's a cloak.
Snoke's a cloak. Snoke's a cloak. Do it. Put my cloak on, Snoke. Snoke's just his butler. Shine those shoes. Put your back into it, Snoke. Now I'm just.
Holmes.
How did that just turn into? At the end, that turned into a Hook. That was Dustin Hoffman. Oh, it's me. Oh, right. Run home, Jack. Home run, Jack.
Right away, Captain.
Home run, Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yes, Robert Williams, Peter Pan. So I think that works. What works? I don't even know. What I
We're
was
just waiting
talking
for Nate to wrap it up so we can keep
about.
it
That works.
going.
Yeah.
So we can keep it going.
All right. Well, thanks for watching. Yeah, another idea for you.
Nate plays our wrap it
Let's
up music.
rethink everything we just talked about.
As Uncle and I are thanking the Academy, Nate plays the wrap it up music, and then we just talk right through it.
I'd like to thank my
Actually,
mom
thanks.
and the Star Wars Guys podcast and
For showing me the correct order.
oh man.
I love that this actually finally got somewhere, though. I was worried about an hour in though that we had voted only on 2 things so far, and that 4 was
Awesome.
unbeatable. I thought, I wonder where this will.
Well,
take
4
a
is
turn.
unbeatable.
This is the ending I was expecting as well. We answered nothing. Thanks for thanks for tuning
Thanks
in.
for watching, and to the 1,900 subscribers we lost today, and the one guy who stuck around. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh man,
I love it.
that's great. So
I'm excited with this
4,
list.
7.
we've got the full list.
Ready?
Not counting.
hear it.
Do we need to throw in Rogue One and Solo and the shows
I
so
think-
people can know
we
where
discussed any of it.
I don't
Obi-Wan?
I don't think we need to throw in anything other than what we maybe think is essential for the story, the Skywalker saga.
We did the Skywalker
not-
saga.
yeah.
Let's give a
of that.
quick. Maybe just give a quick. If we had to throw in the TV shows, where would we just
The shows.
Like,
Yeah,
toss them in?
where would
Like,
I-
We're gonna
Where would we recommend?
watch this in here. Is it possible to even do that with?
It's just so
You can't watch the entire.
You mean like
Clone Wars
limited-
series? There's
limited
no way.
episodes, you mean?
Like yeah, I could say like the Boba
Like
Fett.
Clone Wars, but limited episodes.
Like
Clone
they're
Wars.
gonna watch Mando, season 1. Does that need to be? Can you put that before, after? Does it matter?
Mm.
Fall of the Empire is really all it. As far
Yeah.
as the giveaways
That
there.
would just
'Cause it's a
confuse me
move.
because I'd be like, wait, Luke's with Yoda, but we just saw him dying.
You might be confused
here's
as to
the
who
thing.
Yoda is.
Would it be interesting to see Baby Yoda
Grogu.
before you see Yoda?
You would just assume that
You
he's.
just assume it's
You would be
him.
very confused on the timeline.
That
You
would
go,
be.
"Oh, you've
Yeah.
seen him as a child, so this has to be before."
But we've got people who
Yoda's
watch Mando
dead.
first.
This
That
is
was their
him,
first
I
know.
know.
entry.
It's true.
Yeah.
You learn pretty quickly that it's not once you get the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just think it's another
And the fact that
alien.
everyone just called
It's
it
another
Baby Yoda.
alien. There's another creature.
Yeah.
So
There's
you'd probably
definitely
okay with
there's definitely advantages to watching both Clone Wars and Rebels before watching Mando. For both the
Yes.
For
Mandalorian
sure.
stuff and for Ahsoka
For sure.
and
Yes.
for Darksaber stuff, all of that
Right.
stuff is very
Right.
Yeah.
is very much, again, not saying you can't start with Mando. I'm sure
And
a
I
ton
would
of
say
people.
they work the other way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's similar to how there's stuff that you can also just put it out there and go, I want to know the backstory to that. I mean, that's how I am when I read a lot of these books. Is like,
Yeah.
I watched Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, well, now I want to go read all of Tolkien's books.
Right.
And because you're like, I fell in love with what he did there, and now I got to know everything about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or like, that's how I am like studying like the Lord of the Rings maps or like the games and stuff like that. Is like, I know that, but now I want to be immersed in the whole thing.
That's
Where that could
right.
be Mando for people is Mando is very much, and I think they did a great job marketing to it. This Mando can be for everyone.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
also enough there that if you know the backstory of this stuff, it's gonna pay off for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can either watch the backstory first or
Or
watch it and then
watch
know
the
there's
thing
backstory here
and know
that
there's
we've got
more.
stuff for
Right.
you that you can go watch.
I could argue that Solo and Rogue One could fall into that category. Fantastic
yeah.
backstory.
Yeah.
Backstory, yeah. It doesn't
About-
have
yeah.
to come
And I
first.
feel like one feels like that too.
Yeah.
One
One
feels
feels
like
more. We gotta-
backstory for 2, 3.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Rogue One feels like backstory for 4.
Yeah.
Solo feels like backstory for
Yeah.
all of
It
5.
enriches it. You can watch it without and still understand where the general story is going. But if you want it want to
Right.
enhance your experience, you can go in and watch.
Want to go deeper on
watch
any of the
those.
characters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like those.
Man, is this actually going to work? This
Do we want to recap the
Star Wars guys order?
actual Star Wars guys
Start his order.
Yeah.
We've got starting with Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Then we go to 7.
Do the subtitles have play into this? Say the subtitles as we go and see how it feels.
So we got
Right.
4,
A New Hope. Like what?
New Hope.
We've got 7, The Force Awakens.
Hmm.
People will go, interesting. The
Hope
Force.
Awakens.
What happened to the Force? Okay.
Okay.
Then we've got 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
After they're dead in the desert, the Star Destroyer are there. They strike
And
back
Rise and Strike Back in the past.
in the past.
We have to go back to the future. Then we got 8, The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi.
Seeing that as your 4th movie, you'd be like, "What in the world is
The
the title
Last
of this
Jedi.
movie?"
Which is interesting because in 4, we're kind of told that Vader is the last of his kind.
Yeah.
The last of your religion.
The last of your, yeah. And then we see Luke become a Jedi like your father. 5.
And he's now in that moment, you're kind of thinking Luke's the last
That's
Jedi.
the Luke. And you
Luke
go
is
to
the last
you go to
Jedi.
8. That's Luke.
And
Last
when you
Jedi.
see him
Okay.
later, you're like, he's still the last Jedi.
He's still on.
And that works because we see him
Interesting.
become a Jedi in 5. In 8, in the crawl, it says Luke Skywalker, comma, the last Jedi. It actually flat out says the last
That's
Jedi is
right.
referring to Luke Skywalker in even in the movie. Luke says to Ben, and I will not be the last Jedi.
Yeah.
It's all about, is Luke the last Jedi is what the
Yeah.
movie
Yes.
is about. And then
Yeah.
you find out that no, because Rey is going to
Right.
continue.
Mm-hmm.
But that works perfectly after you find him,
5.
see him train to become a Jedi in 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then cut to the last. And then
Man.
it is all
Yeah.
about the whole thing. I like
Okay.
that. Then we go to, so we went from 8, The Last Jedi, to 2, Attack of the Clones. This is the big jump. This is our big swing for the fences that we think. I think this is a good one, though.
We don't know
Yeah.
clones of Snoke. Or we don't know that Snoke's a clone.
No, we don't know that. We don't. And this is our first taste of the prequels at all.
This is also
our
our
first
first-
taste of young Anakin,
This is
young
our
Obi-Wan.
first take on the the light side, the good guys of the galaxy being in
Right.
control of the galaxy.
That's right.
Until then, every one of these movies,
They're all
it's either
fighting as
Empire or
underdogs.
First Order.
That's
This
right.
is also, this is our first abundance of Jedi.
Yeah.
And boy, do we get it in the Battle of Geonosis.
So you go from the Last Jedi
to all of them.
to
To
all
all.
the Jedi.
This is fantastic.
I love it.
This is
It's
so
fantastic.
great.
I love it. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. I love it.
Star
Yeah.
Wars, all the Jedi.
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
you know?
Probably.
Probably the Last Jedi, which I know some of the best Jedi.
Believe me, we're looking
Some of the
into it.
best. We're looking
And we're
at
looking into it.
Palpatine. He did some things not so good. That guy, but then
This podcast was 4 years too late.
it's just off.
Can you imagine how much fun we could have doing that.
Oh, just
Yeah, okay,
crushed it
fine.
before.
Still fun.
So now we got 3 Revenge of the Sith. Was after Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith.
And then you
so
see
we
how
get we
all
find him
that
become
power-
we see him become Vader.
Yeah.
Do they use the term Sith Lord in
Yeah. So where's the
Sith Lord?
first
4,
when is the
5,
first
7,
Lords
8?
are,
They don't really
um,
talk about that stuff in 4,
Sith
5,
is
7,
a
8.
Sith is a
That's a 1, 2.
it's a
Only
1.
9.
That's introduced in 1.
It's a 1
And in the sequels, it's only referred to a 9.
and 9.
I am all the Sith.
Wow, I love
am all
this. Okay.
And 8 referred to. This is what's great too is 8 refers to Darth Sidious, and we don't know what that is
Yeah.
because we have only known the Emperor. We've got because we haven't seen 1.
Oh my
We
goodness.
get
right.
no reference of Darth Sidious, and this is what's great. This is why 2 is awesome. Going from 8 to 2, he says at the height of the Jedi, at the height of their power, and he's talking about their hubris of the Jedi, allowed Darth Sidious to rise from power right under their nose.
Boom.
Bang! Let's
We
go right to
watch
it. See it happen, and we see
And
the
you
fall
see-
of the Jedi.
Man.
And that's when you see the clones.
see 2 and
getting-
3,
getting
which
introduced.
I think it's great, even though there's a gap. 2 and 3, it does feel like a continuous,
2
Yeah.
3 feels like
Sure.
continuous thing. We're starting 2 very much starts down the path. There's nothing in 9 other than like we're afraid of training Anakin. Or in 9, there's nothing in 1 of Anakin's behavior that suggests he's going to turn to the dark side.
That's right.
No.
It's only that they are scared because he's too old. We're like, we're kind of bending our
yeah.
rules here.
Yeah.
But his behavior is.
and his
pure kid,
midichlorians
pure-
are off the scale.
But there's nothing
We
there
also
that's
lose midichlorians completely.
Yeah, right.
true.
Not the way, completely
True.
the other way.
The
I don't know. I think
a
it
good
is
one.
mentioned in one of the sequels. That's okay.
it might.
I know it's
Might
mentioned
be.
in. It's mentioned in
I feel like it is.
Mando.
It is maybe.
They say M count.
Maybe
Or
it's
your
Mando.
The
MC,
M
or-
count.
the
Maybe
M
it's
count.
Mando. Yeah. Okay.
So we go from 3, Revenge of the Sith, to 6, Return of the Jedi. Which also, Revenge of the Sith,
man.
Return of the Jedi.
And the Last Jedi,
Which, by the way,
Attack of the Clones.
people
Revenge of
know,
the Sith,
a lot of
Return
people
the
know
Jedi.
that Revenge of the Jedi was actually the initial
That's
title,
right.
was the
Yeah,
original title
yeah.
for 6.
But
We get
that-
Revenge of the Sith
They
to
can't use that because
Return of the Jedi.
Revenge of the
Jedi
Sith.
way.
Yep.
Return of the Jedi. Rise of Skywalker.
Skywalker.
After
Yeah, didn't
seeing
they-
the Skywalkers just die in all of those.
All of them are
We
dead.
saw 8 die, go
Wasn't
to
that-
2 and 3, and then 6 die, Vader.
And
So we see Luke's
I
death,
think
we
that-
see
isn't that
Vader's
why
death, and then we
George-
see the Rise of Skywalker.
I think George said that's why he didn't go with Revenge of the Jedi, is that Jedi don't seek revenge.
it would be,
Yeah.
that
It would
would
be
be
an
the Jedi
anti-Jedi.
way.
It's Sith. They're always, yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so we go Return of the
Man.
Jedi 6 to The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker.
And we know the parallels between 6 and 9. We were talking about Palpatine.
It's fantastic.
Sky-
Palpatine
you get-
falls,
you get
Palpatine
Luke, you
rises.
get-
Hermit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do they possibly think Palpatine is Skywalker? Is that possible that there's any connection because Palpatine's gone and then Palpatine's back? And I don't think so. I think we've set it up
Man.
by that point. But
Guys,
I
I'm
think
feeling
this
pretty good
order
about
is
this.
Crazy.
you know, it'd be fun is
I
to
think we
just
stumbled upon something.
it'd be
here.
fun to just watch the crawls in this order.
That's true.
Yeah.
Just watch the
Just
crawls.
see how that is. Yeah. Just the setup of each of them. That's something we can.
Man.
That's something we can do in one day.
We could do that in one day. Watch
We'll
the
do it right
crawls.
now.
We'll do it right now. Here we go.
Hit it. Play it.
Here we
Play
go.
it.
That is.
That's great.
Or
that's it.
you could do it. I mean, anybody watching could do it. Just pull up the
Yeah.
crawls.
Just watch
You
them.
could do beginnings and endings.
We do need to find one person and test this out on. He's never seen Star
Man.
Wars. Never seen Star Wars. Need to test this out.
Knows none of the reveals.
Knows nothing.
I know.
It's like an impossible
have to
jury
play-
selection.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're dismissed.
Now we have to play the
Right.
long game on this, but my son is only 8 months old.
Do we
So
say-
if Star Wars Guys podcast
This
we
is the
risk-
question,
kicking,
right?
do we risk
The
his
question
love
is,
for Star Wars?
do I risk this on my own flesh and
that's
blood?
right. Because it can't really be your feeling unless you're willing to walk through this fire.
I know.
It's
He's
actually
like, I'm
nervous.
not. I can
thinking
see in
about
his
it.
eyes. He's not. I'm a little worried.
No, I listen. My own flesh and blood aside, I'm feeling very good about the list we just came up with.
I love it.
I actually feel great.
For a number of
It
reasons.
yeah.
I think the reveals, the parallels between the I just think that going from like a 6 to a 9 or a 4 to I can't wait to go from 4 to 7 and just see how I feel.
Yeah.
See and again, there could be stuff we're overlooking that I'm like, oh, that feels disconnected
doesn't
or
work.
that's stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, I think going even just the parallel of there's so much, which is again a little bit of the reason why JJ was maybe criticized a little bit, but seeing the parallels when we do it intentionally like this thing, it's gonna be great.
Right.
You got 4. Obi-Wan opens the chest.
I know.
Lightsaber. You get Maz in the basement.
7 opening the chest.
Chest.
Gives it to Rey.
Yeah.
Man.
And then that movie ends with Luke, who had received the saber in 4. Rey's trying to give it to him, and he's got a hesitation. And now we go, what
Why
has
does he
happened?
not want it back?
I
What has
know.
happened? And even though
Or
there's
why does he not have it?
What happened?
and
How did
even
it
though
get
there's
there?
some of that in
Why does he not?
What's
have
wrong
and
with
it?
his
even though there's
hand?
some of that question when we
What's
watched
wrong
it,
with his hand?
even though there's
No, we
some of
get
that
that. Actually, we get that.
questioning for us when we watched 7 was what happened? Why is Luke? But we at least know a lot of his story. This is a complete. What happened between Luke Skywalker on the medal stand, getting his medal,
That guy.
to he's got no hand, beard, on an island by himself. He's vanished.
Everyone's looking
His
for
sin-
him.
And he now
Nobody
hates
knows where he is.
lightsabers.
Leia, who he was close with, hasn't seen. Yeah,
He
there's
hates all
this stuff.
lightsabers. That's in the next one, though.
That's
right.
it,
right,
yeah,
right.
the throw,
He hates
yeah.
Still.
lightsabers. Get that away from me.
But really,
love it.
though,
I
then
love it.
everyone's looking for him. Doesn't know.
Can I amend our title if it's okay? I'll throw something out
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Because really, what we're doing, in fairness, what we're doing is maybe coming
The
up.
only way to watch Star
What
Wars.
could be? We're coming up
My own flesh.
the
and
best
blood.
way to watch Star Wars if you've already seen them all. That's different than Machete Order.
Yeah.
Machete Order is
I'm
for
trying to
that
reveal to some
for that unicorn rainbow that's out there who hasn't
unicorn rainbow.
who's
Just
nothing
never
about
seen
Star Wars.
Yep, never heard of it.
Hypothetical person who doesn't actually exist yet. This actually might not be my first choice.
I think that
But
would
To
be.
clarify, I don't think so either.
Right, but
Right,
for
right.
everybody
Just
who's
think of how many time periods we jump, but they would be so confused.
it's like, it's
they
lost
would
on
watch the
steroids.
first 4 movies or 5
But that
movies
doesn't
and
mean I
go,
wouldn't be willing to try it on.
but if you've seen
But
them
they would
all,
watch the first 5 movies and go, "Who's the main character?" They'd be so lost at that.
But that doesn't mean I wouldn't be willing to
does
try
anybody
it on someone.
die?
Well, listen,
all the
if there-
main
if there's
people
a,
die every
lucky
time.
leprechaun, unicorn, whatever Uncle said,
Unicorn
ruins-
rainbow.
and it ruins leprechaun. There's
It's
so-
even harder.
there's so-
Fully clever leprechaun unicorn rainbow. That's our next.
If
podcast.
it ruins Star Wars for them, there's still
It's
a
fine.
leprechaun unicorn rainbow. They'll be fine. but you're right. This is risky on us. This is risky if we're trying to really buy it. This is someone close to us. This is my son, and I'm trying to do this. Might be tough. Now I will say that I want to go through this order.
That's what I'm getting.
I
at.
want
I
to.
get
feel
this
like
order.
this is for people who love Star Wars, who want to watch them again. Let's watch them again. What would
Yeah.
be the best way to watch Star Wars?
But part of the reason why we like it though too is because we're thinking about the
How it would-
mindset of what it would be like if we didn't know the context already.
That's right. I'm
This is hard.
I'm just saying,
love
if I
it.
had to bet my last dollar on, I wouldn't necessarily say, let's watch it in this order.
I think this is the
And
only
see
way
what
we
happens.
watch it.
I don't
Because what's
know.
great is in at least the way in they came out, or even if you're watching them 1 through 9,
Yeah.
you can at least sit down and have the conversation with people of like, hey, these 3 were made in this time period in the real
There's
world.
a great argument for that.
This is why the effects look the way they are.
Yeah.
But when you
Yeah.
watch 1, 2, and 3, you're not taken out by a jarring difference in between those because they get gradually better in those 3.
That's right.
Then we always say, now if you're going to watch 4, 5, and 6 next, this were made in the 70s, this, and you just
Mhm.
get used to once you watch 4. But if you are varying between, go to this, then you see 7, and then 7, you go from
man.
4 to 7, and 7 looks like the greatest movie you've ever seen, special effects wise.
right.
And then you go back to 5, and you're like, okay, this is great. And
It's a
then
cool
we go,
movie.
this is a cool movie. Then you go to 8. Then you go to the prequels is in
You go to
between.
2.
And then you go back, and then this.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of effects wise, but again,
But I think starting
I've
with
settled
4
on
also
this
sets
being
that precedent.
the best order.
The final order.
Final order. I
Yeah.
like this order though. Just
I
to
like
mess
this
around
order
with it.
for me.
I like it a
For
lot.
me. So if
I
you
like
guys agree in the chat that you like this order for me, comment below and wish me well on my journey. It's all about. We agree this is good for us. If you guys also agree that this is good for us, then comment below.
Is
don't
it
know.
kind of goofy? Yeah. Is it way off like what anybody else thinks? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is it the best way to watch Star Wars? Absolutely.
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 We'll see you next time. Oh no.
Cue the music.
Execute.
No, we don't have any music.
Star Wars guys order.
The final order of
This has got to be the
movies.
most confusing podcast for anybody listening.
We
could
should
jump from 4 to 7 and then jump from 7
we
to 9.
should do
can
one. We should do the best way to watch the Star Wars guys podcasts.
Which of ours? Which
Should
is
you
our
watch
greatest?
the prequels
Also,
before?
The best
Do
way
we
is to
need-
do what we do and don't prepare.
Don't
No,
prepare.
the
Just
best
come
way-
in and
Should you go
enjoy
back
your
and watch
time.
the old ones first or the
Listen,
new ones?
the best
and then-
way to watch the Star Wars Guys podcast, we might have to look in the mirror.
Or listen.
Are there essential episodes? are there
Coming soon to Disney Plus.
Are there best? What's our best? Let's look in the mirror and say what.
You can skip
That
some.
was. We
Was
didn't
this
know
a-
we were
was
doing.
This
This
a,
was that.
3 episode.
Watch all 3 of the essential ones.
all three of our hundreds
Out of
we've
our
done.
100 podcast.
Watch all 3. You kind of get the gist of it, and then just start with the next one.
And subscribe.
Start
to
with the
someone
most
else.
live.
I'm just kidding.
I love it.
Self promotion is our gift.
That's
This is it.
fantastic.
I think we should leave everyone with our classic morons.
Morons, 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 morons. Click and subscribe. That follows the moron chant. That's on the back of the shirt.
That's the
morons.
best.
Click and subscribe.
Morons. I
Like
love
and
it.
subscribe.
Nate, where can the
Man.
people find us?
Hey, you can find us here if you're watching on YouTube. You can also message us on Instagram. That is Star Wars Guys Pod on Instagram. Reach out to us with any questions, any topic ideas. We love to hear from you all. We want to cover episodes that you all are interested in as well. So if it's a certain question, if it's a character, certain topic, certain movie you want us to dive into, we can turn those into episodes as well and make a show out of it. If you're listening to this back, especially, make sure to reach out to us on Instagram, or you can comment here on YouTube, Star Wars Guys on YouTube. As always, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video. And as always, may the Force be with you.
The Star Wars guys came up with an order of films to watch some consider to be unnatural.
Do it.